Chapter 1878. That was why the Wild Beast clan could devour other demon immortals to improve their strength. Chu Fengmian had fused with the heart of the heaven-devouring beast. His blood also contained the power of the heaven-devouring beast. Chu Fengmian condensed his blood into a pill and fed it to the immemorial centipede. It was enough to trigger the thin, heaven-devouring beast bloodline in his blood. Now the immemorial centipede was on the verge of a breakthrough. Once the immemorial centipede's ancient bloodline was triggered and stepped into the half-step celestial realm, his strength would increase exponentially. However, the breakthrough was not something that could be done overnight. Chu Fengmian still needed to travel with the immemorial centipede. With the immemorial centipede, Chu Fengmian's journey was smooth. For example, there was no teleportation formation between the Azure Dragonstar area and the Songhai Star area. Therefore, the demon immortals had to travel across the starry sky. Therefore, there were many demon immortals hiding in the endless starry sky to kill the passing demon immortals. Now, with the immemorial centipede as a deterrent, no one dared to cause trouble for Chu Fengmian. It would take at least a dozen days for an ordinary demon immortal to travel from the Azure Dragonstar area to the Songhai Star area with the Sky Shuttle. Even the immemorial centipede would need at least 3 days. Chu Fengmian lay on the immemorial centipede's back leisurely. However, he was not idle either. In his mind, he was still thinking about the battle with the Mad Dragon Emperor. After all, the Mad Dragon Emperor was a true celestial realm expert. Chu Fengmian also learned a lot from the battle. However, on the 3rd day, the immemorial centipede suddenly stopped. It landed on an uninhabited planet and fell into a deep sleep. It actually broke through at this time. Chu Fengmian slowly opened his eyes and looked at the sleeping immemorial centipede. He could also see that the immemorial centipede had broken through at this time. After receiving the heaven-devouring beast bloodline from Chu Fengmian, the immemorial centipede could break through at any time. Originally, Chu Fengmian thought that it could at least reach the Songhai Star area. He did not expect it to break through halfway. I can only wait. Chu Fengmian sat to the side and was not in a hurry. After all, he was not in a hurry. Once the primordial centipede broke through, he, who possessed the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast, will be able to fight one against 3 half-step celestial being realm martial artists and demon immortals. For Chu Fengmian, this was a great help. This was not an exaggeration, as Chu Fengmian had said. The bloodlines of desolate beasts were extremely powerful. Ordinary desolate beasts could easily fight 2 fey immortals at the same realm. The primordial centipede had awakened the ancient bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast that Chu Fengmian had bestowed upon him. Once he stepped into the half-step celestial realm, it would not be a problem for him to take on 4 opponents at once. Chu Fengmian sat on the side and waited quietly. As time passed, the primordial centipede's aura grew stronger and stronger. It was on the verge of a breakthrough. The aura emanating from the primordial centipede could be clearly felt from hundreds of miles away. I'm afraid this will attract the attention of others. The Princess of the Sea could not help but say to Chu Fengmian when she saw this. This place is not far from the vast sea star zone. I'm afraid it will attract the experts of the vast sea star zone. The primordial centipede was an ancient desolate beast. Anyone who could subdue this primordial centipede would be a great help. The primordial centipede was on the verge of a breakthrough and needed it the most. The aura of a breakthrough at this time would attract the attention of others. Whoever dares to come will die. Don't worry. Chu Fengmian sat on a huge rock and said quietly. Although his tone was calm, the murderous intent in his words was undisguised. Seeing Chu Fengmian's actions, the Princess of the Sea was relieved. After all, Chu Fengmian had subdued the Blue Dragon sect on his own. Even if someone were to spy on them, she would not be worried with Chu Fengmian around. Half a day later, the primordial centipede's aura had reached its peak. In the sky, the tribulation clouds had already formed. A desolate beast's breakthrough required the same tribulation as a martial artist or demon immortal. In this half a day, many martial artists and demon immortals had sensed the primordial centipede's aura and rushed over. However, Many of them retreated when they saw Chu Fengyan sitting next to it. Chu Fengyan didn't hide his cultivation at all. Ordinary true emperors and ancient emperors wouldn't dare to spy on him and would leave immediately. Even in the vast sea star zone, a martial artist at the peak of the Nine Tribulations, Emperor Gu, was still an expert. Chu Fengyan did not need to do anything. Just his aura alone was enough to make most people retreat. This also saved Chu Fengyan a lot of trouble. The tribulation has begun. The tribulation clouds condensed, and bolts of tribulation lightning containing the power of destruction descended from the clouds and bombarded the primordial centipede. The heavenly tribulation of a half-step celestial realm expert was nothing in Chu Fengyan's eyes at the moment. If Chu Fengyan was willing to help, he could destroy the tribulation clouds in an instant and help the primordial centipede overcome the tribulation. However, Chu Fengyan had no intention of doing so. The tribulation was also a trial for the primordial centipede. If he succeeded, his future achievements would be even greater. Unless he was about to fail, Chu Fengyan had no intention of helping. The primordial centipede had awakened its ancient bloodline thanks to the heaven-devouring beast bloodline bestowed by Chu Fengyan. Its strength was no longer the same as before. In the face of the tribulation lightning, the primordial centipede opened its mouth wide. The tribulation lightning was mercilessly devoured by the primordial centipede. The heavenly tribulation of the primordial centipede was about to end in half an hour. A primordial centipede? Or a primordial centipede that has awakened its ancient bloodline and reached the half-step celestial realm. Good stuff. It's actually undergoing tribulation like this. Just as the heavenly tribulation was about to end, a group of people suddenly traveled through space and landed on the planet. They seemed to have dared to come because of the primordial centipede's aura and happened to meet the primordial centipede. If senior brother Jiang can subdue such a primordial centipede, who can be his opponent when we return to the palace? This primordial centipede is a wild beast. It's not easy to subdue it normally. However, this primordial centipede has just undergone tribulation and is at its weakest. Let's attack together and subdue it. Chapter 1879. This group of people was extremely young, but each of them was terrifyingly strong, far stronger than the ordinary Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. In terms of strength, they were almost on par with young Master Hung Long, whom Chu Fengyan had extracted his dragon tendons. Young Master Hung Long was a young master of the Blue Dragon sect. He had an extremely high status and was one of the top figures in the entire Blue Dragon star zone. There were 6 Nine Tribulation ancient emperors in this group. All of them were on equal footing with young Lord Hung, Long's senior brother Jiang, who was the leader, had already reached the peak of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu and was about to step into the half-step celestial realm. The other 5 Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu were all respectful to senior brother Jiang. These 5 Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu were not inferior to young Master Hung Long. They were definitely peerless geniuses. Now that they were so respectful to senior brother Jiang, it was enough to prove senior brother Jiang's strength. The arrival of this group of people immediately set their sights on the primordial centipede. Who are these people? Let's go. This group of malefactors is here. We can't afford to offend them. Seeing the arrival of this group of people, the surrounding martial artists and demon gods who wanted to spy on the primordial centipede all retreated with fear in their eyes. Young Master, these people are the core disciples of the North Sea Palace. The North Sea Palace is one of the 3 most powerful forces in the entire Shanghai star zone. The North Sea that the North Sea Palace controls is a continent. These core disciples of the North Sea Palace are not inferior to the young master of the Blue Dragon sect. The best among them can even fight above their level. Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu could kill a half-step celestial realm expert. The Princess of Assis's expression changed when she saw the arrival of this group of people. She looked a little nervous. Obviously, she was extremely wary of the North Sea Palace. The Princess of Assis was once born in the Shanghai Star Zone. Her understanding of the major forces in the Shanghai Star Zone far exceeded Chu Fengyan. She knew how terrifying the North Sea Palace was. Is that so? The North Sea Palace controls a second-class continent? It seems that there are celestial realm experts in the North Sea Palace. Chu Fengyan sized up the core disciples of North Sea Temple. From their cultivation methods and martial skills, Chu Fengyan could vaguely sense traces of immortal arts. This also proved that there was at least one celestial realm cultivator in the North Sea Temple. Only then would they be able to integrate immortal techniques into the cultivation methods and martial skills of the North Sea Hall. Once immortal arts were integrated into the North Sea Palace, the North Sea Palace's cultivation methods and martial techniques would far surpass ordinary heaven-grade cultivation methods and heaven-grade martial techniques. Even if it was not a complete immortal technique, it was enough to give them an advantage when facing cultivators of the same level. Moreover, the bloodline of these North Sea Palace disciples also contained the bloodline of the Sea clan. They were not inferior to young Lord Hung Long, which was why they had such terrifying strength. An ordinary Emperor Gu of the Nine Tribulations was not even worth mentioning in front of them. They could kill him with a wave of their hand. It's a pity that he's not a disciple of the Sea Sword sect. Chu Fengyan mumbled to himself. According to Mad Dragon Emperor, there was a sword principal totem in the Sea Sword sect. If Chu Fengyan met the disciples of the Sea Sword sect, he could explore about the sword principal totem. The Sea Sword sect is also one of the three major forces in the vast sea star zone. They are extremely powerful and have celestial realm experts. Young lord, you must be careful. The Princess of the Sea could not help but explain when she heard Chu Fengyan's words. Oh, they have celestial realm experts? Hearing this, Chu Fengyan frowned slightly. If the strength of the Sea Sword sect was similar to that of the Blue Dragon sect, Chu Fengyan could directly barge in and take the sword principal totem. However, the Sea Sword sect had a real celestial realm expert. Chu Fengyan's plan had to be changed. He needed to plan carefully. Chu Fengyan's true strength was far from being able to compete with a celestial realm expert. When he faced Mad Dragon Emperor did not want to kill him. Otherwise, Chu Fengyan would not have been so relaxed. If a celestial realm expert wanted to kill, the strength that he could unleash would be completely different. If the Sea Sword sect had a celestial realm expert, Chu Fengyan would not be able to escape unscathed if he dared to barge in. Oh, someone actually beat us to it? Just as Chu Fengyan was thinking, the few core disciples of the North Sea Palace descended and saw Chu Fengyan and the Princess of the Sea sitting beside the primordial centipede. Oh, 9 Tribulations, Emperor Gu? One of the core disciples of the North Sea Palace sized up Chu Fengyan and the Princess of the Sea with disdain in his eyes. Although he was also a 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu, he was almost invincible in the same realm. An ordinary 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu was nothing in his eyes. Disciples of the North Sea Palace, this primordial centipede is our mount. Please leave. The Princess of the Sea shouted when she saw the arrival of these people. Huh? What do you mean your mounts? Do you think you're qualified to have this primordial centipede? One of the disciples of the North Sea Palace laughed when he heard what the Princess of the Sea said. Moreover, this primordial centipede belongs to our senior brother Jiang, since he has taken a fancy to it. Get lost, or we will feed you to this primordial centipede. 2 puny 9 Tribulations, Emperor Gu. Why are you wasting your breath? Just kill them and extract their blood essence. That's right. That girl is pretty. She could be given to senior brother Jiang as a concubine. As for that guy, just kill him and extract his blood essence. Senior brother Jiang is not interested in women. Give him to me. Give him to you? Which of the girls in your hands can live for more than half a year? Didn't you torture them to death? Ha! It's their honor to be killed by me. The few core disciples of the North Sea Palace laughed as they sized up Chu Fengyan and the Princess of the Sea. In their eyes, Chu Fengyan and the Princess of the Sea were already in the bag. You. The Princess of the Sea's face changed when she saw the greedy gazes that were directed at her. These disciples of the North Sea Palace were completely unreasonable. In the entire vast sea star zone, these disciples of the North Sea Palace would not take anyone seriously unless they were disciples of the 3 superpowers. Stop wasting time. Let's get rid of them before we subdue this primordial centipede. Senior brother Jiang, who is the leader, said coldly. Yes, A disciple of the North Sea Palace walked over and looked at Chu Fengmian with a hideous expression. Brat, are you going to kill yourself, or are you waiting for me to do it? Where did this bunch of reckless people come from? Get lost. If you don't get lost, all of you will die. Chapter 1880. As soon as Chu Fengmian's voice fell, the whole place fell silent. Then laughter erupted. Ha! Where did this kid come from? How dare he threaten us? He's probably a kid from some remote star domain. He doesn't know how powerful we are. Interesting. Yin Jing, it seems like your words are useless. Being ridiculed by a kid is a disgrace to the disciples of North Sea Temple. Shut up. The disciple named Yin Jing shouted coldly. He stared at Chu Fengmian, his eyes flashing with endless killing intent. What an arrogant and conceited brat. You brought this upon yourself. Die. The disciple of North Sea Temple roared. With a swoosh, a trident appeared in his hand, and he thrust it at Chu Fengmian. Trident, the weapon of the sea god. It was said that the sea god of the ancient sea tribe used a trident to sweep everything and establish the status of the ancient sea tribe. Later on, the purest members of the sea tribe cultivated the trident halberd technique. As soon as Yin Jing thrust his trident at Chu Fengmian, countless waves condensed out of thin air and pressed down on Chu Fengmian. The tyrannical power contained in the waves was enough to crush any warrior caught in it. It seemed like a casual blow, but it contained incomparably ferocious killing intent. Break it! Chu Fengmian did not even bother to look at Yin Jing. The moment the trident swept over countless waves, Chu Fengmian suddenly made his move. His casual palm contained the power of the 9 moves of the primogeniture. It suddenly turned into a huge war dragon claw, sweeping everything in its path. The trident, along with countless waves, was shattered by the war dragon's claw. The tyrannical power forced Yin Jing to retreat. What? Yin Jing was forced to retreat, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. Yin Jing, don't tell me you can't even deal with a kid like him. This is too embarrassing. I think you don't deserve to be a core disciple of North Sea Temple. You can't even deal with a kid like him? Damn it. Yin Jing roared angrily when he heard the mockery. He glared at Chu Fengmian and yelled angrily. Little bastard, I didn't want to use my real strength. You forced me to. Boom. An ancient phantom suddenly appeared and shrouded Yin Jing's back. It was the phantom of the sea god. Under the shadow of the phantom of the sea god, Yin Jing's strength suddenly increased by countless times. He held the trident in his hand and rushed toward Chu Fengmian again. This time, he used an ancient halberd technique. Every move was fierce and ruthless. He sealed Chu Fengmian's side, making it impossible for Chu Fengmian to escape. The sharp edge was about to tear Chu Fengmian apart. Yin Jing roared ferociously. Chu Fengmian suddenly raised his hand and pointed at Yin Jing. Although it was just a simple point, the sharpness contained in it was extremely terrifying. The countless trident lights that surrounded Chu Fengmian were all destroyed by the finger. The target of the finger was Yin Jing, and it fell on Yin Jing's body. Puff! Yin Jing could not resist the power of Chu Fengmian's finger. He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The phantom of the sea god behind him was shattered by the power of the finger. Die! Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. Yin Jing's body exploded under the power of the finger. He turned into a cloud of blood mist and was devoured by the sky-devouring secret skill. He could not be more dead. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's finger blasted Yin Jing to death. The other disciples of North Sea Temple did not react in time. By the time they reacted, Yin Jing had already been killed. Not even his bones were left. He killed Yin Jing with one finger. Yin Jing was a core disciple of North Sea Temple. He could kill an ordinary 9 tribulations Emperor Gu with one move. But he was killed with one finger? Who is this person? Hidden in the endless starry sky, many martialists and Fey Celestials have been attracted by the primordial centipede's tribulation transcendence. Although they had retreated temporarily upon seeing the arrival of the North Sea Hall disciples, they still wanted to watch the show. However, they didn't expect to see such a scene that they couldn't even imagine. The core disciples of North Sea Temple were almost all monsters among the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Many of them could fight with a half-step celestial being. But Yin Jing was killed by Chu Fengyan with one finger. Chu Fengyan did not use his full strength. He killed Yin Jing in a seemingly casual way, which shocked them. After all, even the other 9 tribulations Emperor Gu, who were also disciples of North Sea Temple, did not react in time. Damn it! How dare you kill a disciple of North Sea Temple? Kill him. We must kill him. Crush his bones and scatter his ashes. The other disciples of North Sea Temple stared at Chu Fengyan and shouted angrily. At this moment, their voices suddenly stopped because Senior Brother Jiang, who was the leader, suddenly moved. He took a step forward and came in front of Chu Fengyan. Seeing Senior Brother Jiang take action, the rest of them did not dare to speak. Boy, killing a disciple of North Sea Temple is a capital offense. Are you going to surrender, or do you want me to kill you now? Senior Brother Jiang spoke with a sense of superiority, as if he regarded everyone in the world as ants. As for Chu Fengyan, after killing Yin Jing, he was just a slightly bigger ant in Senior Brother Jiang's eyes. He was at his mercy. What, another braggart? These disciples of North Sea Temple are not very strong, but they talk big. Chu Fengyan said with a disdainful smile. Senior Brother Jiang, right? If you kneel down now, I can spare your lives. Otherwise, you will all be buried together with Yin Jing. Boy, it seems that you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Senior Brother Jiang looked angry when he heard Chu Fengyan's words. With his status, he had never been ridiculed like this. Then I'll kill you now. The moment he spoke, Senior Brother Jiang suddenly condensed his spiritual power and attacked. He also condensed a trident in his hand. It was obviously his cultivation method and martial technique, just like Yin Jing. However, in terms of aura, Senior Brother Jiang's aura was 10 times stronger than Yin Jing's. Chapter 1881. Senior Brother Jiang has made his move. This brat is going to die without a burial place. It's an honor for this brat to die in the hands of Senior Brother Jiang. The other disciples of the North Sea Temple sneered when they saw Senior Brother Jiang make his move. They were waiting to see how Chu Fengyan would die. Senior Brother Jiang had once forced a half-step celestial realm expert to retreat. His strength was definitely not something that the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu could contend against. Just as the disciples of the North Sea Temple were waiting to see how Chu Fengyan would die, the smiles on their faces suddenly froze. On the other side, Chu Fengyan's body suddenly moved the moment the trident bombarded him. Dragon power condensed and integrated into his palm. Primogenitor's first move. Chu Fengyan took a step forward and struck out with his palm. The moment his palm struck out, it immediately turned into a war dragon claw and swept across. Senior Brother Jiang had already anticipated the bombardment of the palm and was ready to block it with his trident. However, the moment the power of the war dragon claw bombarded his body, his expression changed abruptly. The power that was transmitted from the battle dragon claw was simply unimaginable to him. Under the tremendous force, the trident in Senior Brother Jiang's hand was shattered into pieces. Senior Brother Jiang's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly retreated, trying to neutralize the power of the war dragon claw. However, a wave of dragon power suddenly descended from the sky and suppressed him. Kneel! At the same time, a cold voice was transmitted to his ears. Under everyone's incredulous gazes, Senior Brother Jiang was suppressed by the war dragon claw. Senior Martial Brother Jiang was suppressed by this dragon's might. His knees went soft, and he immediately knelt in front of Chu Fengyan. The scene was extremely silent. Countless martial artists and Yao gods who witnessed this scene doubted their eyes. Senior Brother Jiang was kneeling in front of Chu Fengyan just like that. He was almost powerless under Chu Fengyan's move and was forced to kneel on the ground. This was even more shocking than Chu Fengyan killing Senior Brother Jiang with a single move. For martial artists and Yao gods like Senior Brother Jiang, suppressing them was more difficult than killing them. However, Chu Fengyan's simple palm strike had suppressed Senior Martial Brother Jiang, forcing him to kneel before him. After a brief moment of silence, the crowd burst into an uproar. How is that possible? This was Jiangzhan. He's a peerless genius of the North Sea Hall. He's a famous figure among the core disciples of the North Sea Hall. Yet he was suppressed by this person with a wave of his hand? Could this person be a half-step celestial being expert? No, even a half-step celestial realm expert doesn't have such ability. Where did this person come from? Could he be a genius from one of the Saint Realms? All the warriors and demon gods who saw this scene felt that it was unreal. They were 10 times more shocked than when Chu Fengyan had just killed Yin Jing. After all, Yin Jing was just an ordinary core disciple of North Sea Temple. Even though Chu Fengyan had killed Yin Jing with one move, there were still other geniuses in the Songhai Star Zone who could do the same. However, this senior brother Jiangzhan, was completely different from Yin Jing. Even among the core disciples of North Sea Temple, Jiangzhan was an absolute expert. Now, he was defeated by Chu Fengyan with one move and even knelt on the ground. This also meant that Jiangzhan had no power to fight back in front of Chu Fengyan. Damn it! Damn it! I'm going to kill you! I'm going to kill you! Jiangzhan, who was kneeling on the ground, felt countless gazes on him when he heard the discussions. These gazes were simply boundless humiliation to him. Jiangzhan had never been humiliated like this since he was born. The anger in his heart had reached its peak. He wanted to kill Chu Fengyan and kill all the people who had seen this scene. Fury of the sea god. Blood stains the sea. Boundless anger turned into Jiangzhan's power and gathered on his body, trying to resist the dragon power that was suppressing him. This burst of power was simply enough to make a half-step celestial being expert retreat. However, at the moment when Jiangzhan's power reached its peak, Chu Fengyan suddenly stepped out and stepped on Jiangzhan's head, pressing it to the ground. What? You still want to resist? With your meager strength, killing you is as easy as crushing an ant for me. Chu Fengyan's lips curled into a cold smile. Chu Fengyan's foot had also crushed the power that Jiangzhan had just gathered to resist Chu Fengyan's power. You! With his head being stepped on, Jiangzhan's face was flushed red with anger. However, no matter how he resisted, it was useless. This made the surrounding warriors and Fey gods gasp in amazement. The disciples of the North Sea Temple were all arrogant and domineering in the Songhai Star Zone. These core disciples did not even put the other sex in their eyes. When had they fallen to such a state and been stepped on by someone? Damn it! Let go of senior brother Jiang. Boy, you dare to make an enemy of the North Sea Temple? You'll be hunted down endlessly in the future. The other disciples of the North Sea Temple looked at Jiangzhan, who was being stepped on by Chu Fengyan, and wanted to save him. However, when they thought of how Jiangzhan had been defeated by Chu Fengyan, no one dared to step forward. They only dared to threaten him. Make an enemy of the North Sea Temple? So what? Chu Fengyan said with disdain when he heard the threats. He had never been afraid of anyone's threats in his life. All of you come over here and kneel. Chu Fengyan looked at the remaining disciples of the North Sea Temple and said coldly, Not good. Run, run. Seeing Chu Fengyan's gaze, the remaining 4 disciples of the North Sea Temple trembled. They did not want to kneel in front of Chu Fengyan. In an instant, they turned into 4 rays of light and fled in all directions. In an instant, the 4 rays of light left the desolate planet and escaped into the endless starry sky. Trying to escape in front of me, Chu Fengyan looked at the 4 rays of light and let them escape. He smiled disdainfully. Get back here. As soon as Chu Fengyan spoke, he suddenly attacked, sending a palm strike toward the boundless starry sky. Then, he made a grasping motion. All of a sudden, the 4 figures that had fled thousands of miles into the endless starry sky suddenly returned to Chu Fengyan's palm. Even if they had escaped thousands of miles away, they could not escape from Chu Fengyan's palm. Kneel. Chapter 1882. Like Jiangzhan, the 4 disciples of the North Sea Temple were powerless to fight back under the suppression of the dragon power. They all knelt before Chu Fengyan. Even Jiangzhan was powerless in front of Chu Fengyan, let alone these 4. Except for Yin Jing, who was killed by Chu Fengyan, the remaining 5 disciples of the North Sea Temple were all kneeling in front of Chu Fengmian. Am I dreaming? He captured the escaping light thousands of miles away with a wave of his hand. What kind of strength is this? It's too terrifying. This person is not inferior to the peerless geniuses cultivated by the three major forces. Let's go. Let's go. We can't watch any longer. The warriors and demon gods who were watching the show fled in all directions. Chu Fengmian's attacks were more terrifying each time. The first time he attacked, he killed Yin Jing with one move. The second time he attacked, he suppressed Jiang Zhan with one move and made him kneel on the ground. The third time he attacked, Chu Fengmian captured the 4 disciples of the North Sea Temple who had fled thousands of miles away with one move. The power of one move crossed thousands of miles. This kind of means was simply shocking. It was not something that a Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu could perform. These warriors and demon gods came to spy on the ancient centipede. Now that they saw Chu Fengmian's strength, none of them dared to stay any longer. They were also afraid that once Chu Fengmian got angry, they would all die here. In the endless starry sky around this desolate planet, no one dared to hide and spy. Chu Fengmian did not stop them. He was not a bloodthirsty person. Since these people did not attack, Chu Fengmian would not kill them. Roar! Roar! At this moment, a roar came from beside Chu Fengmian. The primordial centipede had awakened. The scales on the ancient centipede were now brand new. The power contained in the ancient centipede was also completely different from before. It had truly stepped into the half-step celestial realm. Roar, roar. The ancient centipede was extremely respectful when it saw Chu Fengmian. When a wild beast stepped into the half-step celestial realm, it would truly gain intelligence. Although it could not speak human language, it could understand many things. Previously, the ancient centipede was just ignorant and acted based on instinct. Now it was truly considered to have gained intelligence. The reason why the ancient centipede was able to step into the half-step celestial realm was all thanks to the heaven-devouring beast bloodline that Chu Fengmian had bestowed upon him, allowing him to devour. This ancient centipede was naturally extremely respectful towards Chu Fengmian. Good, Fengmian's eyes of the ancient centipede, and step into the celestial realm in the future. Said Chu Fengmian was satisfied. Although he had bestowed the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast to the primordial centipede, giving him a good fortune, the primordial centipede was able to step into the half-step celestial realm so quickly because of his own efforts. After all, opportunities to Fengmian was C had Fengmian. Even though Chu Fengmian had obtained countless opportunities, he only possessed his current strength after experiencing numerous battles of life and death. Although the ancient centipede could not communicate, it still understood the meaning of Chu Fengmian's words. Its eyes were filled with joy. Boy, let us go. If you let us go, we can let bygones be bygones. Otherwise, the North Sea Palace will not let you go. Jiang Zhan, who was kneeling on the ground, said coldly to Chu Fengmian, "Our North Sea Temple has countless experts who are half a step away from the celestial realm. We even have real experts in the celestial realm. If you want to be our enemy, you'd better think twice. I advise you to let us go. Today's matter can be easily solved." That's right. Let's go. The other disciples of the North Sea Palace also threatened Chu Fengmian. Oh, is that so? I'd like to see if the celestial realm experts of the North Sea Palace will take action if I kill you. Chu Fengmian was eager to try when he heard the words of the disciples of the North Sea Palace. The disciples of the North Sea Hall paled when they saw Chu Fengmian's expression. They had wanted to threaten Chu Fengmian to let them go. They did not expect the threat to have the opposite effect. "You, how dare you?" One of the disciples of the North Sea Palace did not give up and continued to threaten Chu Fengmian. "Why wouldn't I dare? Primordial centipede, swallow them," Chu Fengmian said casually. Roar. The primordial centipede was extremely excited when it heard Chu Fengmian's words. It immediately opened its mouth and swallowed the disciples of the North Sea Palace. The strength of the disciples of the North Sea Palace was not bad. The primordial centipede had just broken through and needed essence blood to replenish its strength. In one gulp, The disciples of the North Sea Palace were all buried in the primordial centipede's mouth. Chu Fengmian made a grabbing motion with his hand, and 6 empty rings appeared in his palm. These 6 empty rings belonged to the 6 disciples of the North Sea Palace. After all, the North Sea Palace was a force that ruled a second-class continent. Chu Fengmian wanted to see what treasures were in the empty rings of the disciples of the North Sea Palace. Chu Fengmian infused a stream of spiritual power into the empty rings and opened them. However, Chu Fengmian's eyes showed some disappointment when he glanced at them. These 6 empty rings were filled with ordinary divine elixirs, materials, and so on. Although many of them were specialties of the vast sea star zone, they were of no use to Chu Fengmian. The vast sea star zone was a star zone dominated by the sea tribe. The divine elixirs, and materials produced there were useful to the sea tribe and martial artists who mainly cultivated water-type techniques. However, they were useless to Chu Fengmian. As for the immortal stones that Chu Fengmian was most concerned about, he did not find a single one in the empty rings. It seemed that immortal stones were extremely rare even in the vast sea star zone and second-class continents. These empty rings are all yours. Chu Fengmian glanced at the empty rings and threw them to the Princess of the Sea. The Princess of the Sea mainly cultivated water-type techniques and had the bloodline of the sea tribe. Many of the divine elixirs in the empty rings were extremely beneficial to her. You're giving all of them to me? The Princess of the Sea took the empty rings and was stunned when she opened them. Although there were no immortal items in the empty rings, there were many divine elixirs and divine elixirs. They were extremely valuable even to martial artists and demon gods who were half a step away from the celestial realm. These 6 empty rings were considered a huge fortune, but Chu Fengmian was giving them to her directly. If you are stronger, I won't have to be distracted when I run into trouble. This time, I'm afraid it won't be peaceful, Chu Fengmian said casually. Chapter 1883. After the primordial centipede entered the half-step celestial realm, his speed in the endless starry sky had increased. Master, you have to be careful this time. You have killed a core disciple of the North Sea Temple. The North Sea Temple will not let this go easily. The North Sea Temple's power is spread throughout the entire Songhai star zone. The Princess of the Sea reminded Chu Fengmian along the way. The North Sea Temple has a real celestial realm ancestor. A few hundred years ago, this celestial realm ancestor came out of seclusion. The Princess of the Sea knew Chu Fengmian's strength, but this time, she had to remind Chu Fengmian. After all, the North Sea Temple had a real celestial realm expert. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, he could not compete with a real celestial realm expert. So the North Sea Temple is the strongest force in the Songhai star zone. Chu Fengmian nodded after hearing the Princess of the Sea's words. Although he was confident, he was not arrogant. If he encountered a celestial realm expert, he would avoid them. Not really. Although the North Sea Temple and the Sea Sword Sect are 2 of the strongest forces in the Songhai star zone, the strongest and oldest force in the Songhai star zone is the Sea Sacrificial Sect. The Princess of the Sea explained. The Sea Sacrificial Sect is the oldest force in the Songhai star zone. They are in charge of sacrificial ceremonies. No one can challenge their authority. Sea Sacrificial Sect? Sacrificial ceremonies? The ancient human race had the habit of offering sacrifices. At that time, the power of sacrificial ceremonies was greater than that of the emperor. However, as the human emperor led the rise of the human race, the ancient way of sacrificial ceremonies disappeared. It seemed that the sea tribes still maintained the ancient tradition of sacrificial ceremonies. The person you want me to kill, which force does he belong to? Chu Fengmian came to the Songhai star zone for a few reasons. First, he wanted to get the glazed clean water to dissolve the demonic intent in the heart of the demon Emperor Blood Demon. Second, he wanted to find immortal stones to prepare for Chu Fengmian's breakthrough to the half-step celestial realm. Third, he wanted to help the Princess of the Sea kill a man named Lan Ming. Lan Ming, as a peak half-step celestial realm expert, was likely to belong to one of the 3 forces. Sea Sacrificial Sect. The Princess of the Sea hesitated. Lan Ming is an elder of the Sea Sacrifice sect. Sea Sacrificial sect. The princess of the Sea Sacrificial sect. Does that mean that the Sea Sacrifice sect also has colored glazed clean water? Chu Fengyan asked Princess. Yes. The princess of the sea answered. There is a sacrificial lake in the Sea Sacrificial sect. There is a large amount of glazed clean water within it. Lan Ming is one of the elders in charge of the sacrificial lake. As long as you kill Lan Ming, you will have the opportunity to snatch the glazed clean water from the sacrificial lake. Sacrificial lake. Sea Sacrificial sect. It seems that I must find an opportunity to infiltrate the Sea Sacrificial sect. CCC was C was CCCCCCCC. CCC was Sea Sky. The Seashore sect was the #1 force in the Shanghai starfield. It was probably even stronger than the Seashore sect and the North Sea Palace. C was the Dai Sea Sacrificial Sea Go. Sea Sacrificial Sea was. Sea sect was. Was. What? It. However, he still had to go to the Shanghai star field to understand the situation. While Chu Fengyan and the princess of the sea were conversing, a massive ocean appeared before their eyes. Chu Fengyan and the princess of the sea arrived at the Shanghai star field in less than an hour after the primordial centipede's breakthrough. They arrived at the Shanghai star field on the primordial centipede. The vast sea starfield was called a starfield, but it was actually an enormous ocean. This ocean was so big that it could contain millions of continents. It was boundless. The entire Shanghai starfield was a sea like this. Because of this, the Shanghai star zone was a paradise for the oceanic tribe. This boundless ocean was the best place for the oceanic tribe to live. Later on, a large number of the oceanic tribe occupied the Shanghai starfield. Now, the entire Shanghai starfield was ruled by the oceanic tribe. At a glance, most of the martial artists and Yao gods in the Shanghai Star Zone were either members of the Sea Clan or had the bloodline of the Sea Clan. The Sea Tribe, which was rarely seen in the outside world, could be seen everywhere in the vast Sea Star system. People like Chu Fengyan, who did not have the bloodline of the Sea Clan, were the exceptions. Most of the cities in the Shanghai Star system are built at the bottom of the sea. Follow me. The princess of the sea knew more about the Shanghai Star system than Chu Fengyan. After arriving at the Shanghai Star system, she guided the primordial centipede to the bottom of the sea. The primordial centipede had the ability to travel through space, so entering the sea was not a problem. As for Chu Fengyan and the princess of the sea, they did not have to worry at all. The bottom of the sea in the Shanghai Star system was so deep that they could not see the bottom. After diving for tens of kilometers, they finally arrived at the bottom of the sea. The bottom of an ordinary sea should be pitch black. However, the bottom of the Shanghai Star system was different. At the bottom of the sea, there were corals that were emitting a unique light, illuminating the entire bottom of the sea. At a glance, there was a city at the bottom of the sea. In this city, there was an endless stream of people and carriages. If it were anywhere else, it would be hard to imagine that there would be such a city at the bottom of the sea. However, this sort of scene was commonplace in the Shanghai Star system. Almost 99% of the Shanghai Star system was the sea. Occasionally, there would be a continent, but it would already be occupied by various major forces. If one wanted to build a city in the Shanghai Star system, it could only be built at the bottom of the sea. However, because most of the martial artists and monster deities in the Shanghai Star system had the bloodline of the sea race, they preferred the bottom of the sea to the land. It was more suitable for them to build a city at the bottom of the sea. According to the Princess of the Sea, there were millions of such underwater cities in the Shanghai Star system. The city in front of them was called the Lonely Sea City. This was because the sea was called the Lonely Sea, and the Lonely Sea City was the largest city in it. Chu Fengyan controlled the primordial centipede and arrived at the edge of the Lonely Sea City. He put the primordial centipede into the realm monarch's cloth sack, and then he and the princess of the sea landed in the city. The cities in the Shanghai Star system were the same as the cities in most other star systems. One could enter after paying spirit stones. Chapter 1884. Most of the cities in the Shanghai Star Zone belonged to a few forces. Solitary Sea City was under the control of the Sea Sword sect. Although Solitary Sea City was an underwater city, there was no seawater in it. It was like land. A huge spirit array enveloped Solitary Sea City, isolating it from the seawater outside. Chu Fengmian could see many ancient figures of the Sea Clan on the streets of Solitary Sea City. According to the ancient records of the 9 regions, many of these Sea Clan members had already gone extinct. However, they could be seen everywhere in Solitary Sea City, which was an eye-opener for Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian looked around as he walked. It was very interesting. The Princess of the Sea beside him seemed to be recalling something as she led Chu Fengmian forward. She was still young when she left the vast sea star field. Now that she had returned, she had to carefully recall her memories. Fortunately, Solitary Sea City hasn't changed much. The Princess of the Sea looked around and couldn't help but say she had left Solitary Sea City 100 years ago. However, 100 years wasn't a long time for a city like this. Cultivators who had stepped into the Emperor realm could live up to 10,000 years. Cultivators and monster gods who had stepped into the half-step heaven realm could live even longer. 100 years was indeed not a long time. The scenes in the Princess of the Sea's memories still existed. Young lord, I plan to pay a visit to an old friend. The Princess of the Sea looked at Chu Fengmian and said, would you like to wait? Or, it's fine. I'll go with you. Chu Fengmian said casually. He didn't know much about the vast sea star field, so he might as well follow the Princess of the Sea. The Princess of the Sea nodded and led Chu Fengmian into Solitary Sea City. There were many chambers of commerce in Solitary Sea City, standing on both sides of the streets. The Princess of the Sea led Chu Fengmian all the way to a chamber of commerce before stopping. The Chamber of Commerce was called Qi Gu. The plaque of the Qi Gu Chamber of Commerce was extremely old. It was unknown how long it had been since it was last renovated. Moreover, compared to many other chambers of commerce that were as busy as a marketplace, this mysterious ancient chamber of commerce appeared to be extremely desolate. At a glance, there were basically not many people entering it. These two dare to go to the Qi Gu Chamber of Commerce. They don't want to live anymore. They don't even listen to the orders of the Sea Sword sect. Some of the cultivators and monster gods couldn't help but discuss it when they saw Chu Fengmian and the Princess of the Sea standing in front of the Qi Gu Chamber of Commerce. What's going on? The Princess of the Sea heard the discussion. Qi Gu Chamber of Commerce. Let's go in. Chu Fengmian glanced at the surrounding martial artists and demon immortals and said casually. The Princess of the Sea nodded and entered the mystical ancient chamber of commerce, followed by Chu Fengmian. There were no servants inside the mysterious ancient commerce. There was only an old shopkeeper lying on the counter. When he saw someone enter, he didn't even raise his head. Instead, he weakly said, young master, I'm sorry. The odd ancient chamber of commerce doesn't do business. The two of you should leave. House. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but smile after hearing the shopkeeper. At the same time, he also looked at the items on the counter of the mysterious ancient chamber of commerce. The items on the Qi Gu Chamber of Commerce's counter were of high quality. Many of them were useful even to half-step sky, human realm cultivators, and monster gods. Although they weren't treasures, they were still treasures that people would fight over. Logically speaking, the Qi Gu Chamber of Commerce shouldn't be short of customers with such items. However, it was very strange that the Qi Gu Chamber of Commerce was so desolate. If you don't want to do business, then you don't want to do business. Kid, it seems like you're not from the Sea Tribe. You must be an outsider. Don't cause trouble, the old shopkeeper said helplessly as he looked at Chu Fengmian. Sir, we're not here to buy anything. We're here to look for someone called Qi Yongshi. The Princess of the Sea walked over and said to the shopkeeper, this must be the boss of the Qi Gu Chamber of Commerce. That's right. The old shopkeeper stood up from the counter and looked at the Princess of the Sea curiously. You are? Tell him that we're from the Lanhai family. The Princess of the Sea didn't explain. Lanhai. When the old shopkeeper heard this, he pondered for a moment before replying. Please wait for a moment. With that, the old shopkeeper walked to the back of the Chamber of Commerce. Chu Fengyan and the Princess of the Sea casually found a chair and sat down to rest. Are you called Hai Xian or Lan Ling? Chu Fengyan looked at the Princess of the Sea and suddenly asked. In the Daluo star domain, the Princess of the Sea was usually called Hai Xian. It was the same in the Shanghai capital. However, when the Princess of the Sea told Chu Fengyan her name, she said Lan Ling. Chu Fengyan's curiosity was piqued when he heard the conversation between the Princess of the Sea and the old shopkeeper. These two names both belong to me. When I was in the Shanghai star domain, I belonged to the Lan family and was called Lan Ling. However, due to some matters, I had to leave the Shanghai star domain and went to the Daluo star domain. I changed my name to Hai Xian so that I wouldn't be discovered. The Princess of the Sea added after thinking for a while. The boss here used to be a member of the Lan family. He's considered one of my elders. So, you were forced to leave the Shanghai star domain because of Lan Ming? Chu Fengyan asked. Given the hatred that the Princess of the Sea had for Lan Ming, it could only be possible that Lan Ming was the reason why the Princess of the Sea and the others left the Shanghai star domain. That's right. The Princess of the Sea nodded and was about to continue speaking. An old man suddenly walked out of the Chamber of Commerce. He seemed to be seriously ill as he coughed a few times when he walked out. When the old man saw the Princess of the Sea, he looked at her carefully and said excitedly, Mississippi Miss, is it Miss Ling? It's me, Uncle Chi. The Princess of the Sea was also very excited when she saw the old man. She looked at the old man, named Chi Yang, and said worriedly, What happened? Uncle Chi, how did you get injured so badly? It's a long story. Master Miang coughed and looked at the Princess of the Sea with an anxious look in his eyes. Miss Ling, you shouldn't be returning to the Shanghai star domain at this time. Hurry up and leave. You can't stay in the Shanghai star domain. Uncle Chi, what happened? Could it be that Lan Ming found you and attacked you? Chapter 1885. It's not Lan Ming. It's the Sea Sword Sect. Qi Yangsher coughed a few times out of anxiety before continuing. The Sea Sword Sect, I don't know where they got the news, but they want to force Miss Ling's family out. Sea Sword Sect? The Princess of the Sea's eyes turned cold, and a murderous intent filled her eyes. Damn it, the Sea Sword Sect doesn't even care about the agreement. Cough, cough. The Sea Sword Sect and the Sea Sacrifice Sect are just jackalls of the same tribe. Miss Ling, you should leave the Shanghai Star Field and never come back. Qi Yangsher coughed and said anxiously, Miss Ling, you should leave quickly. Otherwise, the Sea Sword Sect will be here soon. Although I'm old, I can still delay them for a while. Leave? Where do you think you're going? As expected, there are still many Lan family survivors hiding in the Shanghai Star Field. They've finally shown themselves. At this moment, the door of the Chigu Chamber of Commerce was violently kicked open. A group of people rushed into the Chigu Chamber of Commerce. They were aggressive and seemed to be up to no good. Every one of them had a spiritual sword on their back. They were all sword cultivators, and almost every one of them was at the realm above Emperor Gu. The leader of the group was even at the peak of the 9 tribulations, Emperor Gu. He was no weaker than Jiang Zhan, whom Chu Fengyan once said he wanted to kill. This group of people barged into the Chigu Chamber of Commerce and surrounded Qi Yangsher, the Princess of the Sea, and the others. Qi Yangsher's face suddenly changed when he saw this group of people. Hi, Shirsi, what are you doing here? What am I doing? Old man, why do you think we didn't kill you and let you live? I didn't expect the Lan family survivors to be so loyal and come out at this time. They really can't bear to part with a loyal old dog like you. The young man, named Hai Shirsi, laughed heartily as his gaze suddenly landed on the Princess of the Sea. The Black Whale bloodline? It's the Black Whale bloodline. It's really the Lan family survivors. I didn't expect to be so lucky. The Black Whale bloodline? It's the supreme bloodline of the Sea Clan. 14th Young Master, you are so lucky. If 14th Young Master obtains this Xian Whale bloodline, he may become the sect master of our Sea Sword sect in the future. It's the 14th Young Master's fate. The few Sea Sword sect disciples beside Hai Shirsi all echoed in agreement. The Princess of the Sea and Master Qi Yangsher's expressions turned increasingly ugly as they listened to the discussions. Hai Shirsi, Your sea sword sect had an agreement with the Lan family. Master Myong looked at Hai Shirsi and asked coldly, Promise? What agreement? Oh, the agreement back then was between our sea sword sect and the Lan family. However, it wasn't with the remnants of the Lan family like you. Now that the Lan family has long been destroyed, there's no such agreement. Hai Shirsi disdainfully glanced at Master Muyang as he spoke. Old man, being able to let you live for a few years is already a great favor to you. Now, you are useless. Hand over that woman, and we can let you live for a few more days. Don't even think about it. When Master Muyang heard this, he was infuriated. He turned around and said to the Princess of the Sea, Miss Ling, leave quickly. This old man will hold them back alone. Is that so? Master Qiyang, you're just an old man who's struggling at death's door. How dare you speak such big words? If you were at your peak, perhaps this young master would be wary of you. However, you are just struggling at death's door. Hai Shirsi said disdainfully as he looked at Qiyang Shi. Looks like you're determined to die. All right then, I'll kill you first, you old dog. Boom! As Hai Shirsi spoke, a shocking sword intent exploded from his body. This sword intent was so strong that it enveloped Hai Shirsi's back. The surrounding sea sword sect disciples couldn't withstand his sword intent and retreated one after another. Even Emperor Gu couldn't withstand Hai Shirsi's sword intent. This was enough to prove how sharp Hai Shirsi's sword intent was. Miss Ling, leave quickly. Master Muyang roared. A surge of spiritual energy formed a long spear in his hand. He suddenly attacked and stabbed towards Hai Shirsi. You overestimate yourself. Hai Shirsi sneered and pulled out the spirit sword on his back. In an instant, the sword's edge swept through the entire Chamber of Commerce. The spear in the mystic young master's hand was immediately sent flying by the bombardment of the sword energy. After sending Master Muyang flying, Hai Shirsi didn't continue to pursue him. Instead, he looked directly at the Princess of the Sea. The mysterious whale bloodline is mine. Hand it over. Boom! A dazzling sword intent suddenly shot out. This sword intent formed a huge cage in the air and enveloped the Princess of the Sea. When one's swordsmanship reached the great completion stage, it would be able to transform into anything. Not only could it be used to kill, but it could also be used to seal and suppress. This huge cage was formed by Hai Shirsi's sword intent. The moment it enveloped the Princess of the Sea, a tyrannical spiritual energy immediately suppressed her. It's a pity that the mysterious whale bloodline didn't awaken. It's a waste. When it falls into my hands, it will be the true glory of the mysterious whale bloodline. This bloodline isn't something that the Lan family's remnants are worthy of. Hai Shirsi looked at the Princess of the Sea with greed in his eyes. Who dares to touch my people? Just as the cage formed by Hai Shirsi's sword intent was about to form, a dragon's roar was suddenly heard. A huge war dragon claw descended from the sky and swept everything in its path. Under the sweep of the war dragon claw, the sword intent that enveloped the Princess of the Sea was instantly destroyed. Who is it? At this moment, Hai Shirsi suddenly saw Chu Fengyan. When he entered, he didn't even take Chu Fengyan seriously. Chu Fengyan's sudden attack attracted his attention. Dragon Clan? You dare to meddle in other people's business? Get out. Hai Shirsi looked at Chu Fengyan and frowned as he said coldly, You want me to get out? You don't have the right to do so. If you kneel down now, I can consider sparing your lives. Chu Fengyan sat leisurely on the chair and looked at Hai Shirsi. He didn't show any signs of getting up as he spoke casually. Hai Shirsi's gaze instantly fell on Chu Fengyan. After carefully sizing him up, his eyes were filled with killing intent. You're just a small Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations. How dare you stand up for me? It seems that I, Hai Shirsi, haven't fought for too long. How dare any Tom, Dick, or Harry act so presumptuously in front of me? Chapter 1886. Hai Shirsi roared as he turned the sword in his hand and slashed at Chu Fengyan. A blue sword light burst forth from the tip of the sword. The sword radiance contained the power of the Sea Clan. It was said that the Sea Sword sect had created a unique swordsmanship by combining the Sea Clan's martial techniques and swordsmanship into one. The Sea Sword sect had won a place in the vast sea star field with this unique swordsmanship. Just the sharpness of the sword had already surpassed many heaven-level sword principles. Interesting. Chu Fengmian smiled when he saw the sword radiance. Chu Fengmian could see through the sword radiance with just a glance. Although the Sea Sword sect swordsmanship had not reached the level of an immortal technique, it was among the best swordsmanship created by countless swordsmanship sections. Moreover, Chu Fengmian sensed some ancient swordsmanship in the Sea Sword sect swordsmanship. Chu Fengmian was still skeptical about what Mad Dragon Emperor had said about the sword totem in the Sea Sword sect. Now that he had seen Hai Shirsi's swordsmanship, Chu Fengmian was more certain that the Sea Sword sect must have a sword totem to create such an immortal technique. Only with a sword totem could the experts of the Sea Sword sect create a swordsmanship that combined the Sea clan's martial techniques and swordsmanship. However, even though this sword technique was a little mysterious, it was still extremely powerful. But in front of Chu Fengmian, it was simply showing off in front of an expert. Great! Chu Fengmian sat on the chair and did not show any signs of moving. He just slowly raised a finger and pointed it out. Bang! The power of the finger collided with Hai Shirsi's sword radiance in the air. Hai Shirsi's sword radiance was mercilessly shattered at the moment of collision. Compared to Chu Fengmian, Hai Shirsi's attainment in swordsmanship was like a child's. A simple finger was enough to break his swordsmanship. 14th young master, let's go together. Whoosh! The disciples of the Sea Sword sect, standing beside Hai Shirsi, were shocked when they saw Hai Shirsi suffer a loss. Suddenly, the disciples of the Sea Sword sect attacked at the same time. Streaks of sword edges slashed toward Chu Fengmian from all directions. You're just an ant. Chu Fengmian wore a disdainful expression. With a wave of his hand, the battle dragon claw above his head slammed down once again. The battle dragon's claw swept through everything in its path, allowing the sword light that filled the sky to slash at Chu Fengmian from all directions. Streaks of sword light were mercilessly shattered as the battle dragon claw swept towards the Sea Sword sect disciples. Cries of agony rang out as the disciples of the Sea Sword sect were smashed into pieces by the battle dragon claw. Their blood essences were devoured by the heaven-devouring secret skill the moment they were destroyed by the battle dragon claw, cutting off their hopes of reconstructing their physical bodies. For a moment, the odd ancient chamber of commerce was filled with the smell of blood. Apart from Hai Shirsi, all of the Sea Sword sect disciples had died under the claws of the battle dragon. Am I dreaming? When did such a tyrannical figure appear in Silent Sea City? Could this person be from the Lan clan? It is said that the Lan clan was once tyrannical and was not inferior to the current three great forces. Impossible. This person is using the Dragon clan's martial technique. How could he be from the Lan clan? Then why is he standing up for the Lan clan? Some of the martialists and Yao gods of Silent Sea City were watching from outside the odd ancient chamber of commerce, ready to watch the show. However, they had not expected to see such an unbelievable scene. These disciples of Sea Sword sect had no power to fight back in front of Chu Fengmian. They were all killed by him one by one. It even seemed that Chu Fengmian had not used his full strength. Chu Fengmian had been sitting in the chair leisurely and did not even get up. He had killed all of the Sea Sword sect disciples with just a wave of his hand. Who exactly are you, Your Excellency? Why are you standing up for the remnants of the Lan clan? Are they the ones who paid you? Hai Shirsi felt a chill in his heart as he watched the Sea Sword sect disciples being killed by Chu Fengmian. He could not see Chu Fengmian's tyrannical attack clearly, but what frightened him was that Chu Fengmian's sword had broken his sword technique. This was something that even the elders of the Sea Sword sect could not do. Hai Shirsi continued when he saw that Chu Fengmian did not speak. Your Excellency's strength is not bad, but it is nothing in front of the Sea Sword sect. If Your Excellency insists on being enemies with the Sea Sword sect, then you are asking for trouble. If it is for the Black Whale bloodline, I am willing to give you half of it. How about it? Chu Fengmian said coldly. Boy, don't go too far. This is the Silent Sea City, the territory of the Sea Sword sect. You dared to kill the disciples of the Sea Sword sect, which is an unforgivable crime. Why don't you beg me now?" Hai Shixi's expression changed greatly when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. However, Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and a dragon's might pressed down on Hai Shixi. Hai Shixi swallowed the words that he wanted to say. Under the suppression of the dragon's might, he could not resist at all. His knees went soft, and he knelt on the ground. You dare to treat me like this? My master is the sword-serving sea monarch. My master will not let you go. You, noisy. Chu Fengmian snorted and suppressed Hai Shixi with his spiritual power, making him unable to open his mouth again. "I still have some things to ask you. I will spare your life for now. Take." Chu Fengmian opened the boundary monarch's pouch and took Hai Shixi into it, leaving him to be guarded by the immemorial centipede. As the dust settled, the odd ancient chamber of commerce, which had been incomparably lively just a moment ago, was now completely silent. The martial artists and Yao gods outside hurriedly retreated when they saw Chu Fengmian's gaze. They did not want to provoke a fiend like Chu Fengmian. Inside the Chigu Chamber of Commerce, the Princess of the Sea was fine, but the mystic young master was startled and only reacted after a while. "May I know who Senior is? I was rude just now. This is not the place to talk. Let's talk somewhere else." Chu Fengmian glanced at the mystic young master and handed over a pill to him. "Eat it, and it will heal your injuries." "My injuries are—" The mystic young master hesitated for a moment, but still ate the pill that Chu Fengmian handed over. Suddenly, the pill turned into the sky-devouring secret technique. The cold poison in the mystic young master's body was swept away, causing his injuries to recover by more than half. Chapter 1887. The injury on Master Odyang's body wasn't caused by an attack, but by a kind of cold poison. After all, Master Odyang was also a Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. Ordinary injuries could be healed in an instant, but it was a kind of cold poison that was corroding his body. As soon as Chu Fengmian arrived at the odd ancient chamber of commerce, he could tell that Master Odyang's injuries were caused by a type of cold poison. Ordinary sacred medicines, sacred pills, and even ancient sacred pills might not be able to heal Master Odyang's injuries. However, Chu Fengmian had the bloodline of the heaven-devouring beast and mastered the heaven-devouring secret technique, which could devour everything. This little cold poison was naturally not worth mentioning in front of the heaven-devouring secret technique. The pill was formed by Chu Fengmian's heaven-devouring power. When Master Odyang swallowed it, the heaven-devouring secret technique would be activated in his body and devour the cold poison. Once the cold poison was removed, Master Odyang's injuries would quickly recover. "Thank you, young master." Although Master Odyang didn't know Chu Fengmian's origin, he also addressed Chu Fengmian as young master when he saw how respectful the Princess of the Sea was to Chu Fengmian. "Let's go. Let's talk somewhere else." Lonely Sea City was the territory of the Ocean's Word sect. Chu Fengmian had killed the disciples of the Ocean's Word sect, so the Ocean's Word sect would soon know about such a big matter. Staying in Lonely Sea City would also be troublesome. "All right." Master Odyang waved his hand and took away all the treasures in the odd ancient chamber of commerce. Then he followed Chu Fengmian and turned into a streak of light that flew out of Lonely Sea City. "You want to leave after killing the people of the Ocean's Word sect." Whoosh! Just as Chu Fengmian's group was about to leave the Lonely Sea City, a streak of light suddenly burst forth from the center of the city. This streak of light was extremely fast and blocked Chu Fengmian's group's path in an instant. "It's the Lonely Sea King, the City Lord of Lonely Sea City. This person is a half-step celestial realm expert and is extremely powerful. Let's run." When Master Qiyang saw this person, his face revealed a trace of panic. Although he was a peak figure of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu, there was a huge difference between a half-step Emperor Gu and a half-step celestial realm expert. "Why are you running?" The corners of Chu Fengmian's mouth curled into a smile as he looked at the tranquil sea monarch and said coldly, "Scram! How dare you?" When the Sea King of the Quiet Sea arrived, he did not expect Chu Fengmian to be so arrogant in the face of a half-step celestial being like him. His tone showed that he did not put him in his eyes at all. daring to kill a disciple of the sea sword sect. He is indeed a lawless person. Suppress him. The tranquil ocean sea king let out a long roar as he abruptly unsheathed a spiritual sword from his hand. Aiming at Chu Fengyan, the tip of the sword slashed down with a loud bang. The Solitary Sea City was under the control of the Ocean's Word sect, and the Solitary Sea King was also an expert of the Ocean's Word sect. The power of this sword was far beyond High Shursees, and it was able to faintly mobilize the power of the Solitary Sea. The power of the entire Silent Ocean was boundless. Even if this sword only contained a portion of the Silent Ocean's power, it was still extremely terrifying. The incomparably tyrannical sword edge was aimed straight at Chu Fengyan's chest. Primogenitor's second form. Sweep. Chu Fengyan roared as dragon power condensed in the palm of his hand. Suddenly, he struck out with his palm, which transformed into the claw of a war dragon and bombarded it. The boundless dragon power erupted and swept through everything as it fiercely bombarded the tranquil ocean sea king's sword edge. Puffed. The tranquil ocean sea king only felt that he was hit by an unbearable force the moment the two forces collided. He couldn't even hold the sword in his hand firmly, and he immediately retreated while spitting out a large mouthful of essence blood. After taking a deep look at Chu Fengyan, the tranquil ocean sea king turned into a streak of light and fled into the distance without hesitation. The moment they exchanged blows, he realized how terrifying Chu Fengyan was and didn't dare to fight with him again. Chu Fengyan had no intention of chasing after the tranquil ocean sea king. After forcing the tranquil ocean sea king to retreat, he directly summoned the primordial centipede and rode it out of the solitary sea city with the princess of the sea, Mystic Yang, and the others. The solitary sea city was only a small part of the vast solitary sea. Once they entered the solitary sea, even the strongest experts would find it difficult to find traces of the primordial centipede. What is this person's strength? Why is the tranquil ocean sea king no match for him? That's too terrifying. He defeated the tranquil ocean sea king with one move? Could he be someone at the peak of the half-step celestial realm? An existence comparable to the ancestors of the major forces? I'm afraid the Sea Sword sect hasn't suffered such a huge loss in many years. Not only were their disciples killed, but even the tranquil ocean sea king couldn't capture this person. Looking at the back of Chu Fengyan riding the primordial centipede, some of the tranquil ocean city's martial artists and Yao gods felt as if they had just woken up from a dream. It wasn't just these martial artists and Yao gods. Mystic Yang was still in a daze. He was still thinking about how Chu Fengyan had defeated the tranquil ocean sea king with one move. In the vast sea star field, according to ancient traditions, only the half-step celestial realm members of the Sea Clan were qualified to be called Sea Kings. The tranquil ocean Sea King was a half-step celestial realm Yao god. Even if the tranquil ocean Sea King wasn't considered a powerhouse among the half-step celestial realm experts, he was still considered a veteran Sea King. The surrounding martial artists and Yao gods couldn't see Chu Fengyan's realm, but Mystic Yang, who was standing so close, could see that Chu Fengyan was only at the realm of the Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. Chu Fengyan's attack just now was enough to shock Mystic Yang when he defeated the Sea Sword sect disciples. Now that Chu Fengyan had defeated the tranquil ocean Sea King with one move, the shock he felt was 10 times greater than when he had been in the mysterious ancient Chamber of Commerce. He now knew why the Princess of the Sea was so respectful to Chu Fengyan. The journey was silent. Everyone was thinking about their own matters. Chu Fengyan was thinking about the tranquil ocean Sea King's sword move just now. That sword move had mobilized the power of the entire tranquil ocean. This kind of swordsmanship already vaguely had the shadow of an immortal technique. To be able to create this kind of swordsmanship, the Sea Sword sect either has more than one Sword Dao totem, or their Sword Dao totem is extremely ranked. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to create this kind of swordsmanship. Chu Fengyan thought to himself, there were a total of 19 Sword Dao totems. The swordsmanship recorded in each totem was completely different. The higher the ranking of the Sword Dao totem, the more swordsmanship recorded in it. The swordsmanship would also be more mysterious and closer to the origin of Sword Dao. Chu Fengmian now had 3 Sword Dao totems, which were ranked 3rd, 4th, and 19th. Judging from the swordsmanship created by the Sea Sword sect, it was likely that the Sea Sword sect's Sword Dao totem wasn't the first, second, or more than one. Chapter 1888. The primordial centipede only stopped when it reached a trench at the bottom of the sea. Chu Fengmian released a wave of spiritual energy and isolated the surrounding seawater. Both Qi Yangshi and the Princess of the Sea walked to the side to meditate and rest. The cold poison in Qi Yangshi's body had already been neutralized by Chu Fengmian using the sky-devouring secret technique. Now, it was time to heal his injuries. The Princess of the Sea began to meditate and cultivate. Chu Fengmian had previously killed a few disciples of the Seaward sect, so he had given the empty rings of the disciples to the Princess of the Sea. Many of the treasures in the empty rings were extremely useful to the martial artists and demon gods of the Sea tribe bloodline. The Princess of the Sea was also using the power of these treasures to increase her strength. Chu Fengmian came to a huge rock and opened the Boundary Monarch's pouch. From it, he released Hai Shirsi, who had just been suppressed. Chu Fengmian had already planted layers of restrictions on Hai Shirsi's body. Even though his strength was not inferior to an ordinary half-step celestial realm expert, he still could not activate any of his power. Under the suppression of the restrictions, Hai Shirsi could only kneel in front of Chu Fengmian. There was no way he could resist. Kill me if you can. Hai Shirsi raised his head and looked at Chu Fengmian with hatred in his eyes. Kill you? I caught you because I want to ask you a question. If you're obedient, I can spare your life. Chu Fengmian looked at Hai Shirsi and said calmly, Speak. Is there a sword principle totem in the Seaward sect? You want a sword principle totem? Hai Shirsi's face suddenly changed when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. He then laughed arrogantly. Brat, give up. You don't have to try to get anything out of my mouth. Even if I die in your hands today, my master will avenge me. At that time, you'll have to die with me. You don't want to talk? Chu Fengmian looked at the arrogant Hai Shirsi and was not angry. Instead, he revealed a strange smile. If you don't want to talk, I have ways to make you talk. All heaven's death, be under my control. The moment Chu Fengmian spoke, a mass of spiritual power suddenly condensed in the palm of his hand. This mass of spiritual power turned into a pitch-black rune in the palm of his hand. The moment he saw the pitch-black rune, Hai Shirsi's expression changed abruptly, revealing a look of horror. What do you want? Enter. Boom. With a wave of his hand, the pitch-black rune entered Hai Shirsi's body and deeply engraved itself into his Dao heart. Heavenly Death Seal. With the increase of Chu Fengmian's strength, the heavenly death seal that he had planted was becoming more and more powerful. Even a half-step celestial being expert could not dispel the heavenly death seal. As the heavenly death seal entered Hai Shirsi's body, Hai Shirsi's face became extremely ferocious as he roared. No, don't control me. I'm willing to work for you. I'm willing to tell you everything. Chu Fengmian completely ignored his pleas. He had given Hai Shirsi a chance, but he did not know how to cherish it. Now, there was no second chance. Soon, Hai Shirsi's struggle gradually weakened. His expression calmed down, and he looked at Chu Fengmian with incomparable respect. Master, speak. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and removed all the seals on Hai Shirsi's body. After planting the heavenly death seal, Hai Shirsi could not betray Chu Fengmian for a short period of time. Yes, there's indeed a sword principle totem in our Seaward sect. This sword principle totem is the most important treasure of our Seaward sect. It is usually guarded by the elders. Only a small number of disciples are qualified to comprehend the sword principle totem. The sword principle totem is located in the core of the Seaward sect's holy land. If one is not qualified to comprehend it, no one can get close to it. Hai Shirsi reported all the information that Chu Fengmian wanted to know. The security is tight. Chu Fengmian murmured to himself after hearing Hai Shirsi's words. Everyone knew that the sword principle totem was the most precious treasure of sword principle. However, everyone's understanding of the value of the sword principle totem was different. For most martial artists and Fey immortals, they only knew that the sword principle totem was the most precious treasure of sword principle. At most, they regarded it as a treasure similar to supreme sword chi. However, Chu Fengmian knew that the value of the sword principle totem was much higher than supreme sword chi and other treasures. The sword principle totem was deeply hidden in the sword principle totem, which recorded the sword principle origin. It could be said that the 19 sword principle totems were most likely transformed from a sword principle origin. If the Seaward sect did not guard the sword principle totem tightly, Chu Fengmian could try to snatch it directly. After all, even if there were true celestial realm experts in the Seaward sect, such experts should be cultivating the celestial great Tao and would not be involved in trivial matters. Only when Chu Fengmian snatched the sword principle totem would such figures be alarmed. Moreover, Chu Fengmian did not want to fight against the celestial realm experts. He just wanted to escape. Chu Fengmian's strength was indeed far from that of a true celestial realm expert. However, when it came to escaping, there was probably no half-step celestial realm expert who could compete with Chu Fengmian. If he was determined to escape, Chu Fengmian still had some chances. However, now that he heard Hai Shirsi's description, Chu Fengmian understood that the Seaward sect knew the value of the sword principle totem very well. Under such tight security, it was impossible for Chu Fengmian to swagger into the Seaward sect, snatch the sword principle totem, and leave. Moreover, to snatch the sword principle totem, he had to succeed in one try. If he failed in one try, it would inevitably alarm the Seaward sect. The next time Chu Fengmian wanted to make a move, the difficulty would be countless times higher. At that time, it would be as difficult as ascending to the sky. For Chu Fengmian now, unless he could sneak into the Seaward sect and see the sword principle totem, the chances of success in one try were not high. Are you qualified to comprehend the sword principle totem? Chu Fengmian was thinking about this in his mind. He looked at Hai Shirsi and suddenly asked, Master, I've tried to comprehend the sword principle totem, but I also need to spend a lot of contribution points to exchange for the opportunity to comprehend the sword principle totem. It will take me a long time to accumulate such a large amount of contribution points. Chapter 1889. The structure of the Seaward sect was very similar to the Sacred Dragon Mystery Dimension that Chu Fengmian had gone to. There was a complete contribution point system. Only by working for the sect and earning contribution points could one enjoy the various benefits of the sect. Almost every sect in every galaxy had a similar system. Only such a system could be passed down for a long time. Furthermore, it was extremely difficult to earn contribution points from the Seasword sect. Hai Shirsi had already been bestowed with the surname Hai. If he wanted to exchange it for a chance to comprehend the Sword Dao totem, he would need to accumulate contribution points for a long time. Hai Shirsi's original name was not Hai Shirsi. In the Seasword sect, the top 20 core disciples would be given the surname Hai and their ranking number. Hai Shirsi was the 14th inner disciple of the Seasword sect. Although Jiang Zhan, whom Chu Fengmian had met, was also a core disciple of the Seasword sect, he was not in the top 20 and was not qualified to be given the surname Hai. It's good that I can meet him. As for contribution points, I just need to complete the task given by the Seasword sect. Chu Fengmian said. As long as he could get close to the sword principle totem, Chu Fengmian had the confidence to seize it. Since Hai Shirsi had the opportunity to comprehend the sword principle totem, Chu Fengmian could take advantage of the opportunity to hide in Hai Shirsi's body and sneak in. After seizing the sword principle totem, Chu Fengmian would escape from the Seasword sect. Master, the guardian of the sword principle totem said that it would be difficult to deal with more than 2 elders of the half-step celestial realm. Hai Shirsi hurriedly reminded Chu Fengmian after hearing his words. Hai Shirsi had been planted with the all-heaven death seal by Chu Fengmian, and all his thoughts were for Chu Fengmian's sake. Naturally, he would tell Chu Fengmian all the dangers. It's okay, I'll deal with it. At this point, Chu Fengmian suddenly thought of something and continued to speak. By the way, how many celestial realm experts are there in the Seasword sect? Only those at the peak of the half-step celestial realm were a threat to Chu Fengmian. However, The biggest threat to Chu Fengyan was, of course, the Celestial Realm experts. It was precisely because Chu Fengmian was wary of the Sky Realm experts in the Sea Sword sect that he didn't dare to barge in. He could only use his wits. There's only one. He's an extremely ancient ancestor of our Sea Sword sect, known as the Emperor of the Waterfront Sword Sea. He's also one of the strongest ancestors in the vast Sea Star region. He stepped into the Celestial Realm tens of thousands of years ago and became an immortal. Hai Shirsi's voice was trembling when he mentioned the Waterfront Sword Sea Emperor. It was obvious that he was extremely afraid of the Waterfront Sword Sea Emperor. If there's only one, then that's fine. The Emperor of the overlooking Sword Ocean seems to be someone who entered immortality through the sword, a peerless sword immortal. According to the ancient records, once one stepped into the Celestial Realm, one would be qualified to be called an immortal. One who became an immortal through the sword would be a sword immortal. However, some ancient records stated that only celestial marquises in the profound heaven realm were qualified to be called celestials. Celestials, on the other hand, were only considered immortals, not true immortals. Of course, in this era, celestial realm experts were extremely rare, so no one paid attention to them. The Emperor of the Waterfront Sword Sea is usually in seclusion, but once Master tries to seize the sword totem, the Emperor of the Waterfront Sword Sea Emperor will definitely be awakened. Hai Shirsi said. Chu Fengyan nodded. The Emperor of the Waterfront Sword Sea Emperor was not someone who had just stepped into the Celestial Realm like the Mad Dragon Emperor, but someone who had stepped into the Celestial Realm for tens of thousands of years. He was probably much stronger than the Mad Dragon Emperor, so Chu Fengyan had to plan carefully. Let's find a plan to sneak into the Sea Sword sect first. Chu Fengyan also wanted to understand the Sea Sword sect before making his move. He put Hai Shirsi into the Realm King's pouch, then looked at the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshu. Qi Yangshu's aura had recovered a lot. After all, he was seriously injured because of the cold poison in his body. Now that the cold poison had been neutralized by Chu Fengyan, the remaining injuries were nothing to a nine-tribulation emperor Gu like Qi Yangshu. He would recover quickly. Thank you for saving my life, young Master Chu. Qi Yangshu saw Chu Fengyan looking at him, so he quickly got up and bowed respectfully. This time, it was all thanks to Chu Fengyan. Otherwise, he would have died from the cold poison sooner or later. The cold poison in his body had already spread all over his internal organs, and he was almost incurable. Only Chu Fengyan's sky-devouring secret skill could save his life. It's nothing, Chu Fengyan said, then looked at the Princess of the Sea. He carefully sized her up and said curiously, "The Black Whale bloodline? I didn't see it." Chu Fengyan only knew from Hai Shirsi that the Princess of the Sea had the Black Whale bloodline. The Black Whale was one of the innate divine beasts, the ancestor of the Sea Tribe. Although many said that the ancestor of the Sea Tribe was the Sea God, the Sea God was only the founder of the Sea Tribe. The Black Whale was the one who created the thousands of Sea Tribe. The ancestor of all the Sea Tribe in the world was the Black Whale. The Black Whale bloodline was also a branch of the innate divine beast bloodline. It was not inferior to Tianlong's bloodline or the sky-devouring beast bloodline. Chu Fengyan had known the Princess of the Sea for a long time, but he had never noticed the Black Whale bloodline in the Princess of the Sea. Originally, Chu Fengyan thought that the Princess of the Sea's bloodline was just an ordinary Sea Tribe bloodline. However, after hearing Hai Shirsi's words, Chu Fengyan examined it carefully and realized that there was a terrifying power hidden in the Princess of the Sea's bloodline. It was the power of the Black Whale. However, Chu Fengyan could see that the Black Whale bloodline in the Princess of the Sea had not awakened. When Chu Fengyan was in the ancient monster continent, he had killed the young master of the Hua family. He also possessed the tongue snake bloodline, but it had not awakened. If the innate divine beast bloodline had not awakened, it would look like an ordinary bloodline. It could only be detected through special means. Although the Black Whale bloodline in the Princess of the Sea had not awakened, the news had spread. Therefore, she was hunted down and left the vast Sea Star Zone. Even after she left the vast Sea Star Zone for 100 years, the hunt had never stopped. Hearing Chu Fengyan mention the Black Whale bloodline, Qi Yang Master's expression changed drastically. He looked at Chu Fengmian cautiously. He knew that Chu Fengmian was close to the Princess of the Sea. However, in front of the innate divine beast bloodline, even brothers or father and son could turn against each other, let alone friends. Chapter 1890. Uncle Qi, you don't have to worry. My lord won't harm me. The Princess of the Sea looked at the nervous master Qi Yang and chuckled. Then, she looked at Chu Fengmian. That's right. I have the bloodline of the black whale. Our Lan family once inherited the bloodline of the black whale. Is Lan Ming also from the Lan family? Chu Fengmian asked. Judging from the name, this Lan Ming should be related to the Lan family. That's right. That traitor. It was because of him that the Lan family was destroyed. Otherwise, we wouldn't have ended up like this. The Princess of the Sea was furious when she mentioned Lan Ming. She only calmed down after a while and continued to speak. Lan Ming was once an extremely talented genius of the Lan family. In my generation, the Lan family has declined. However, we are still one of the major forces in the Shanghai Star Zone. Although the Sea Sword sect, Sea Sacrifice sect, and the others also wanted the bloodline of the black whale, they were afraid of the Lan family's strength and didn't dare to make a move. Lan Ming awakened the bloodline of the black whale long ago. However, he wasn't satisfied with his own bloodline. Instead, he turned his attention to the other members of the Lan family. In the end, the ancestor of our Lan family died under Lan Ming's sneak attack. After that, Lan Ming joined the Sea Sacrifice sect. Then, he didn't stop thinking of seizing the bloodline of the other disciples of the Lan family. He chased after the disciples of the Lan family. Our branch had no choice but to leave the Shanghai Star Zone and go to the Daluo Star Zone. However, I'm the only one from the Lan family who truly possesses the bloodline of the black whale. Lan Ming didn't stop chasing after the Lan family. We, who were once subordinates of the Lan family, were also chased by Lan Ming. Later, the Sea Sword sect, North Sea Palace, and other forces also joined in the chase. They also wanted the bloodline of the black whale. Master Qi Yang said viciously. He didn't know how many people he had been chased after in the past few decades. Those who chased after him didn't want to kill him. They wanted to use him to force the Lan family out. That was why they had been watching him and using cold poison to wear down his vitality. If they wanted to kill him, with the strength of the Sea Sword sect, killing a Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu like him would not require any tricks at all. A man's wealth is his own ruin. The bloodline of the black whale will naturally attract attention. I'm afraid you'll encounter a lot of trouble when you return to the Shanghai Star Zone this time. Chu Fengmian glanced at the Princess of the Sea and roughly understood what had happened in the past. In the ancient times, martial artists and demon immortals who possessed the innate divine beast bloodline were not as rare as they were now. However, without exception, every martial artist and fey god who possessed an innate divine beast bloodline had been hunted down countless times. The innate divine beast bloodline was extremely tempting to any martial artist or demon god. If they were strong enough, they would still be able to protect themselves. However, if they were not strong enough, they would die under the pursuit. Once the Lan family declined, this situation was also destined to happen. Fortunately, your profound whale bloodline has not awakened yet. It is not that troublesome to hide it. Let me help you this time. Chu Fengmian glanced at the Princess of the Sea. Suddenly, he gathered a surge of spiritual energy and injected it into the Princess of the Sea's body. As this surge of spiritual energy was injected into the Princess of the Sea tribe's aura completely disappeared. There was only a faint dragon's might left. At the same time, another surge of spiritual energy was injected into Qi Yangshi, who was beside her. His spiritual energy was transformed into a type of dragon power. He looked no different from a real demon immortal from the dragon tribe. He did not have the aura of the sea tribe at all. I will use the dragon tribe's bloodline to conceal your aura. As long as you don't use your full strength, no one will be able to detect your true identity. Thank you, young master. The Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi hurriedly thanked Chu Fengmian when they felt the aura on their bodies. If their auras could not be detected, then the two of them would not be hunted down even in the Songhai star system. The Songhai star zone was close to the Azure Dragon star zone. There were many demon immortals from the Dragon tribe in the Songhai star zone. Even the people from the Seaward sect and the Sea Sacrifice sect would not be able to see through their disguise when they disguised themselves as members of the Dragon tribe. With Chu Fengmian's aura concealment, no one would be able to detect the mystery unless they were a true Sky Realm expert. Now that you have concealed your aura, we can go to other cities. The Princess of the Sea suddenly muttered to herself. She turned around and said to Chu Fengmian, "Young master, I plan to go to other cities to do some things. I want to find the people from the Lan family." "Great. I also plan to go to the Seaward sect." Chu Fengmian replied, "I promised you that I would kill Lan Ming, but before that, I still have some things to do." After witnessing the strength of the Sea Sacrifice sect, Chu Fengmian also understood that it would not be easy to kill Lan Ming. The strength of the Seaward sect was already troublesome for Chu Fengmian, let alone the Sea Sacrifice sect, which was much stronger than the Seaward sect. If Chu Fengmian killed Lan Ming, the Sea Sacrifice sect would be enraged. Chu Fengmian would probably have to leave the Songhai star zone as soon as possible. Therefore, Chu Fengmian's plan was to first obtain the Sword Principal Totem and then kill Lan Ming. Moreover, Lan Ming was also a genius of the Lan family. He had the Xinjing bloodline. His strength was probably much stronger than what Chu Fengmian had imagined. If Chu Fengmian obtained the Sword Principal Totem and comprehended it, Chu Fengmian's strength would improve. He would have more confidence in killing Lan Ming then. Great. This is a jade talisman unique to the Lan family. As long as you are in the Songhai star zone, you can infuse spiritual energy into the jade talisman to find my location. When you are done with your business, you can come find us. The Princess of the Sea moved her palm. A jade talisman appeared in her palm, and she handed it to Chu Fengmian. Great. If there is danger, you can also inform me. Chu Fengmian's heart moved. Suddenly, a gust of spiritual energy condensed in his palm. It turned into several pills, and he handed them to the Princess of the Sea. These pills are formed from my energy. If someone consumes them, they will be able to hide their aura just like you. Since the Princess of the Sea left to find the Lan family, the other members of the Lan family were probably under the surveillance of various forces, just like Mr. These pills could hide their aura and help them a lot. Thank you, Mr. The Princess of the Sea revealed a look of joy on her face, and she accepted the pills without any hesitation. Then let's part ways here. Chu Fengmian's figure flashed and disappeared into the trench. Chapter 1891. After separating, Chu Fengmian left the trench and suddenly changed into Hai Shursi's appearance. He went to a city that also belonged to the Sea Sword sect, Southtown Sword City. He had already left the Silent Sea and was heading to one of the largest sea regions in the Songhai Star Zone, Sword Sea. The Sword Sea was the sea region where the Sea Sword sect was located. Chu Fengmian rode the immemorial centipede and spent 7 days to reach the Sword Sea. The Songhai Star Zone was dozens or even hundreds of times larger than an ordinary star zone. Moreover, it was a huge ocean, a paradise for the sea tribe. Along the way, there were many ancient sea beasts and exotic beasts that lived in the vast sea star field. This time, he had to use Hai Shursi's identity to sneak into the Sea Sword sect. Therefore, Chu Fengmian changed into Hai Shursi's appearance. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, no one would be able to see through his disguise unless it was a true Celestial Realm expert. Although there were true Celestial Realm experts in the Sea Sword sect, such experts usually wouldn't interfere in the affairs of the Sea Sword sect. According to Hai Shursi, the Emperor of the Overlooking Sword Sea rarely showed himself in hundreds of years. He spent most of his time in seclusion. As long as he didn't encounter the Emperor of the Overlooking Sword Sea, it wouldn't be a problem for Chu Fengmian to sneak into the Sea Sword sect. As for the Princess of the Sea and Qi Yangshi, the two of them were originally Emperor Gu of the Nine Tribulations realm. Qi Yangshi had recovered from his injuries and was a pinnacle Nine Tribulations Emperor Gu. Such people couldn't be considered an overlord in the Songhai Star Zone, but they were still experts. As long as they didn't provoke the Sea Sword sect or the Sea Sacrifice sect, they wouldn't be in any danger. After all, their auras were concealed by Chu Fengmian. They looked like ordinary demon immortals of the Dragon Clan. Even if the Sea Sword sect and the Sea Sacrifice sect investigated, they wouldn't be able to trace it back to the Dragon Clan. Chu Fengmian couldn't be bothered with the Lan family. His current goal was to seize the Sword Dao totem and find a chance to kill Lan Ming. As for the rest, he could only see if there was a chance to find immortal stones and prepare to enter the half-step celestial realm. Master, Jinan City is up ahead. Following Hai Shirsi's guidance, a gigantic city appeared before Chu Fengmian's eyes. Looking from afar, Jinan City was much larger than the tranquil sea city that Chu Fengmian had visited before. A huge sword formation shrouded the entire Jinan City. Even a half-step celestial realm expert would be killed instantly if he tried to resist the sword formation. Chu Fengmian had learned from Hai Shirsi that Jinan Sea City was one of the entrances to the Sea Sword sect. This was similar to the relationship between the Sword Dao City and the Sword Origin world. However, the Sea Sword sect was incomparably huge, and there was more than one such gate. This Jinan City was located at the southern end of the Sea of Swords. Further south was another sea, the Eternal Sacrificial Sea. The Eternal Sacrificial Sea was where the Sea Sacrificial sect was located. It was also the center of the Shanghai Starfield. Chu Fengmian retracted his aura and turned into Hai Shirsi. It looked like Hai Shirsi was alone as he entered Jinan City. 14th Young Master. The disciples guarding the Jinan City saluted Chu Fengmian respectfully when they saw him. These disciples of the Sea Sword sect in Jinan Sea City were all extraordinary existences that couldn't be provoked. However, they were all respectful in front of Chu Fengmian. Hai Shirsi was a core disciple of the Sea Sword sect and was given the name Hai. According to the ancient rules of the Sea Sword sect, core disciples who were given the name Hai would be qualified to compete for the position of the sect master in the future. Of course, under normal circumstances, Hai Shirsi wouldn't be able to do so. However, in the history of the Sea Sword sect, there might have been some low-ranking core disciples who had obtained amazing encounters and competed for the position of sect master. To the other disciples of the Sea Sword sect, Hai Shirsi was almost like a young sect master. Naturally, no one dared to disrespect him. Many disciples even came over and complimented him. 14th Young Master, I heard that you went out this time because you found the remnants of the Lan family. I wonder if you obtained the Black Whale bloodline. A disciple of the Sea Sword sect came to Chu Fengmian's side and complimented him. Once the 14th Young Master obtains the Black Whale bloodline, how can the other Young Masters be your opponent? When the time comes, the 14th Young Master will defeat all the other Young Masters and seize the position of Sect Master. Get lost. Chu Fengmian snorted and pretended to be angry as he scolded. Chu Fengmian's tone and appearance were exactly the same as the real Hai Shirsi. Chu Fengmian used the Heavenly Death Seal to control Hai Shirsi. Hai Shirsi's memories fell into Chu Fengmian's mind. Moreover, the real Hai Shirsi was still locked in the Realm King's pouch by Chu Fengmian. Just in case, Chu Fengmian could summon him at any time. The current Chu Fengmian was almost the same as the real Hai Shirsi. Only those who were extremely close to Hai Shirsi could tell the difference. However, Hai Shirsi was arrogant by nature. There were almost no disciples close to him in the Sea Sword sect. This saved Chu Fengmian a lot of trouble and made Chu Fengmian less apprehensive. Yes. Hearing Chu Fengmian's scolding, the other disciples of the Sea Sword sect hurriedly retreated. With their status, they didn't dare to provoke this Hai Shirsi. Seeing Chu Fengmian's back as he left, the disciples of the Sea Sword sect started scolding. Damn it, this Hai Shirsi is too arrogant. He's only below average among the core disciples with the surname Hai. I can't believe he's this arrogant. Whatever, lower your voice. Don't let him hear you. Even if this Hai Shirsi can't become the sect master, he'll still be an elder in the future. We can't afford to offend him. Seems like the 14th Young Master suffered a big loss this time. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so angry. Didn't they say that the Lan family had fallen? How could I let Hai Shirsi suffer a big loss? Maybe it's a trick left behind by the Lan family. After all, The Lan family has the bloodline of the Xian whale and was once powerful. It's not surprising that they left behind some tricks. Since the 14th young master didn't succeed, then the people of the Lan family must still be in the Shanghai Star Zone. If we can find them, then it'll be a great opportunity. The bloodline of the Xian whale is an innate divine beast bloodline. If I can get it, then I'll have a chance to become the sect master in the future. Stop dreaming. The other young masters have all left the sacred ground to find the remnants of the Lan family. We'd better rope in the others. Look, the 13th young master is back. Another figure landed in Jinnan Sea City. The disciples of the Sea Sword sect stopped their discussion and hurried over to welcome him. Chapter 1892. Looks like I haven't been discovered yet. Chu Fengmian walked on the streets of Zenenhai City, but he left a trace of his consciousness to observe the disciples of the Sea Sword sect. Chu Fengmian was a little worried that the High Shursi he disguised himself as would be different from the real High Shursi and be seen through. However, it seemed that these ordinary disciples of the Sea Sword sect couldn't see the difference, which made Chu Fengmian feel relieved. 13th young master, could it be that Hai Shur-san also came to Zenenhai City? Chu Fengmian heard the conversation of the disciples of the Sea Sword sect. These disciples of the Sea Sword sect called Hai Shursi the 14th young master. So the 13th young master they were talking about should be Hai Shur-san. In Hai Shursi's memory, he had always been enemies with Hai Shur-san in the Sea Sword sect. They had fought many times, but Hai Shursi was always slightly inferior. Compared to the ordinary disciples of the Sea Sword sect, Hai Shur-san was much more familiar with Hai Shursi. Chu Fengmian had to be careful when facing Hai Shur-san. Chu Fengmian was reminded and strolled around Zenenhai City. Zenenhai City was far more prosperous than the Lonely Sea City. It could be said to be one of the largest cities in the entire vast sea star field. As the gateway to the Sea Sword sect, a large number of martial artists and Yao gods who wanted to join the Sea Sword sect gathered in Zenenhai City. Sects like the Sea Sword sect and the Sea Sacrifice sect would open their sects to recruit disciples every once in a while. That was when the city was truly prosperous. There was still some time before the opening of the sect, but many martial artists and Yao god from other seas had already arrived in Zenenhai City. The vast sea star field was so vast that even Chu Fengmian took 7 days to travel from the Lonely Sea to Zenenhai City on the ancient centipede. Among the countless seas in the vast sea star field, there were many that were much farther away than the Lonely Sea. Therefore, many martial artists and Yao gods had come from far away to settle down in Zenenhai City. They were waiting for the day when the Sea Sword sect opened its doors to recruit disciples so that they could take the assessment and join the Sea Sword sect. The prosperity of the vast sea star field is indeed much greater than that of the overarching heaven star field. As Chu Fengmian strolled along the streets, he could not help but think to himself as he watched the martial artists and demon immortals coming and going. Jinnan Sea City was the biggest city in the Shanghai Star Zone. There were hundreds of millions of martial artists and Yao immortals gathered there. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw many Emperor Realm and Emperor Gu Realm masters. Chu Fengmian had even seen several peak figures like Emperor Gu of the 9 Tribulations. However, Chu Fengmian had yet to see experts who were half a step into the celestial being realm. Even in forces like the Sea Sacrifice sect and the Sea Sword sect, experts who were half a step away from the celestial being realm were respected and could be regarded as elders. Of course, they rarely appeared in public. The vast sea star system is indeed worthy of being a second-grade continent. It's indeed terrifying. I'm afraid that with the strength of the Sea Sword sect alone, it would be easy for them to sweep through the Daluo star system. Chu Fengmian gradually understood the terror of the Sea Sword sect from Hai Shursi's memory. In the Sea Sword sect, there were 50 to 60 experts who were half a step away from the celestial being realm, far more than the Blue Dragon sect that ruled the Blue Dragon continent. This was only the number that Hai Shursi knew. Although Hai Shursi was a core disciple, he was not considered a senior member of the Sea Sword sect. As far as he knew, there were still many old antiques in the Sea Sword sect who were cultivating in seclusion. These old antiques did not care about worldly affairs. They only wanted to pass the celestial tribulation and become immortals, stepping into the celestial being realm. With such strength, the Sea Sword sect was only one of the forces in the vast sea star zone. It was not even the strongest force. The strength of the Sea Sacrifice sect was even more terrifying than the Sea Sacrifice sect. It was rumored that the strength of the sacred region was hundreds or thousands of times greater than that of a second-grade continent. The 9 regions were now being targeted by Jihua Heaven. Although under the threat of the 9 regions of heaven, the 3 sacred regions only dared to test the waters. However, the future was uncertain. If Chu Fengmian wanted to protect the Swordway sect, he could only become stronger. Senior, please come to our Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild to have a look. The Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild has everything. Just as Chu Fengmian was casually walking on the streets of the South Sea City, he suddenly passed by the door of a merchant guild. Several disciples of the merchant guild could tell that Chu Fengmian had an extraordinary origin at a glance and came to rope him in. Chu Fengmian only came back to his senses when he heard this voice. He found that he was standing in front of a merchant guild. These disciples surrounded Chu Fengmian and tried to rope him in. Although these disciples of the merchant guild were trying to rope him in, their tone was extremely respectful, so he did not feel irritated. This is the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. Chu Fengmian raised his head and glanced at the name on the plaque of the Merchant Guild. Based on Hai Shirsi's memory, the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild was considered one of the largest merchant guilds in the vast sea star zone. It did not belong to any of the 3 major forces, but was an independent force. Although it was not huge, there were several experts hiding behind it, so it could often get good treasures. It was said that as long as one was willing to pay a high enough price, one could buy anything in the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. Of course, there was some exaggeration in this sentence, but even in Hai Shirsi's memory, the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild was extremely mysterious. This Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild should have some background. Let's go in and have a look. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment, then stepped into the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. From a group of disciples of the Merchant Guild, a young female disciple walked out and followed Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian walked around the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild, looking at the many spiritual weapons and sacred medicines on the counter expressionlessly. These spiritual weapons and sacred medicines were of no use to Chu Fengmian. However, many of these sacred medicines had disappeared from the 9 domains for tens of thousands of years, yet they still existed in the Songhai star system. This made Chu Fengmian curious. These things are not worthy of Senior's attention. The female disciple beside Chu Fengmian had been observing the changes in Chu Fengmian's expression. After a while, she asked in a low voice, "That's right. The Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild is known to have everything, but I think it's just an undeserved reputation." Chu Fengmian sneered, showing Hai Shirsi's arrogance incisively and vividly. "Senior must be joking. These things are only used to brush off outsiders. Senior, please go to the 2nd floor." Chapter 1893. As the female disciple spoke, she led Chu Fengmian to the 2nd floor of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. Although it was called the 2nd floor, it was just a name. The interior of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce was much larger than what it looked like from the outside. It was a space of its own. For a half-step celestial realm expert, opening up a space was not a difficult task. The 2 of them were walking on a path in this space. Around the space path, there were rooms opened up by the power of space. These rooms were all sealed by layers of restrictions. Even a half-step celestial realm expert's spiritual consciousness could not detect what was happening inside from the outside. However, for Chu Fengmian, the restrictions were not worth mentioning at all. Chu Fengmian quietly released his soul sense, and the situation in the surrounding rooms was seen by Chu Fengmian. In each room, there were some experts from the Songhai Star region who were trading with the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. Spiritual stones, spiritual weapons, sacred elixirs, mysterious treasures, and even some killing and capturing people alive were all available. In the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce, as long as one was willing to spend enough money, one could hire experts to kill or capture people alive as slaves. Senior, you have an extraordinary appearance and a shocking sword intent. May I know which expert from the Sea Sword sect you are? The female disciple was leading Chu Fengyan when she suddenly turned her head and asked Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan's body was constantly emitting a faint sword intent. The Sea Sword sect respected the sword, and Hai Shirsi's character was extremely arrogant. Chu Fengyan also emitted a sharp sword intent and looked no different from the real Hai Shirsi. If Hai Shirsi was a disciple of the North Sea Palace, it would be difficult for Chu Fengyan to disguise himself. After all, Chu Fengyan did not know the martial techniques of the sea race. However, in terms of sword principles, Chu Fengyan's sword principles were countless times stronger than Hai Shirsi's. Moreover, Chu Fengyan had obtained Hai Shirsi's memories and had completely comprehended the sword principles of the Sea Sword sect. Chu Fengyan's aptitude was enough to comprehend the first sword principle of the number 1 Sword Emperor. In a few breaths' time, Chu Fengyan had completely comprehended the sword principles of the Sea Sword sect. It could be said that the sword principles of the Sea Sword sect that Chu Fengyan displayed were even more profound than the real Hai Shirsi's. In terms of sword arts, Chu Fengyan's disguise was flawless. "You don't deserve to know my identity." Chu Fengyan coldly snorted and a sword intent pressed down. This female disciple was only a life and death realm martial artist. She could not bear with it. "It's my daughter's fault. Senior, please don't take offense." This female disciple hurriedly said. She originally wanted to ask about Chu Fengyan's identity and think of a way to obtain some benefits. But now, he had suffered a great loss. "Seeing that you are a disciple of the lunar ocean commerce, I won't kill you this time. But if there is a next time, no one will be able to save you." Chu Fengyan coldly snorted and dispersed his sword intent. After the sword intent dispersed, the female disciple finally let out a sigh of relief. However, her gaze towards Chu Fengyan was now filled with incomparable fear. She did not dare to continue probing Chu Fengyan's identity. The female disciple obediently led the way. After an unknown distance, they finally arrived at a room. In this room, an old man was already waiting. The female disciple brought Chu Fengyan here and hurriedly left. "This old man is the manager of the Sea Moon Merchant Association. My surname is Wu. I wonder, what do you want to buy this time?" When Steward Wu saw Chu Fengyan sit down, he sized up Chu Fengyan and took the initiative to speak. "Manager, my business is not something a small manager can handle. Hand over the manager of your Sea Moon Merchant Association. I don't have time to waste with you." Chu Fengyan glanced at Manager Wu and sneered. Manager Wu was speechless when he heard Chu Fengyan's words. The Sea Moon Merchant Association was considered one of the largest merchant associations in Jinan City. Usually, the martial artists and demon immortals who came to the Sea Moon Merchant Association to do business were also very polite to them. He had never seen someone as arrogant as Chu Fengyan, especially when he was one of the managers of the Sea Moon Merchant Association. He had an extraordinary status in the Sea Moon Merchant Association. When had he ever been ignored like this? "Our manager is not in the Sea Moon Merchant Association." Shopkeeper Wu glanced at Chu Fengyan and said impatiently. His tone became a bit colder. "What business do you want? Just tell me. If you don't want to do business, please leave." "What? A small manager of the Sea Moon Merchant Association doesn't know the rules? How dare you be presumptuous in front of this young master?" Chu Fengyan was not angry when he heard Manager Wu's words. Instead, he laughed. "Sir, the Sea Moon Merchant Association is not a place where you can be presumptuous." Manager Wu's tone hardened as he sneered at Chu Fengyan. "Is that so? A small manager of the Sea Moon Merchant Association dares to treat me like this? Seems like you are courting death." Chu Fengyan slammed the table. Suddenly, a shocking sword intent was aimed at Manager Wu and suppressed him. This was a sharp sword intent. Of course, this sentence was somewhat exaggerated. However, even in Hai Shirsi's memory, the Sea Moon Merchant Association was very mysterious. This Sea Moon Merchant Association should have some background. "Let's go in and have a look." Chu Fengyan thought for a moment and stepped into the Sea Moon Merchant Association. A young female disciple walked out from the group of Chamber of Commerce disciples and followed Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan walked around the Sea Moon Merchant Association. They looked at the many spiritual weapons and sacred medicines on the counter expressionlessly. These spiritual weapons and sacred medicines were of no use to Chu Fengyan. However, many of these sacred medicines had disappeared from the 9 domains for tens of thousands of years, yet they still existed in the Songhai star system. This made Chu Fengyan curious. These things are not worthy of Senior's attention? The female disciple beside Chu Fengyan had been observing the changes in Chu Fengyan's expression. After a while, she asked in a low voice, "That's right. The Sea Moon Merchant Association is known to have everything. I think it's an undeserved reputation." Chu Fengyan sneered, showing Hai Shirsi's arrogance incisively and vividly. "Senior, you must be joking. These things are only used to brush off outsiders. Senior, please go to the second floor." Chapter 1894. Seeing this figure, Chu Fengyan knew that it was an expert of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. Naturally, Chu Fengyan couldn't hide from the experts of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. They wouldn't sit idly by and watch Steward Wu be killed by Chu Fengyan. At this critical moment, someone finally made a move. This figure was a half-step celestial being realm expert of a sea species. He looked like a middle-aged man with a noble aura. Obviously, he was a big shot in the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. "Sir Consecrator." When Steward Wu saw the middle-aged man, he bowed respectfully and said. The middle-aged man ignored Steward Wu and said to Chu Fengyan directly, "14th young master, please calm down. A servant doesn't know the rules. Please don't bother with him." "Oh, you are?" Chu Fengyan didn't find it strange that the middle-aged man recognized Chu Fengyan's identity. Hai Shirsi was one of the famous geniuses in the entire Sword Sea. A core disciple with the surname Hai would be respectfully addressed as young master wherever he went. The middle-aged man turned his head to look at Steward Wu and shouted coldly, "Steward Wu, this is the 14th young master of the Sea Sword sect. You offended him. Why don't you apologize?" 14th young master? Steward Wu's face changed. The core disciples of the Sea Sword sect had a great chance of reaching the half-step celestial being realm in the future. Although he was the Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations, his status was completely different from Chu Fengyan's. He thought that Chu Fengyan was just an ordinary Emperor Gu of the 9 tribulations. He didn't expect him to have such an identity. "Forget it. I don't want to bother with an old man. Tell him to get lost." Chu Fengyan waved his hand. "Thank you, 14th young master." Hearing this, Manager Wu finally heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly left the room. Only Chu Fengyan and the middle-aged man were left in the room. "I'm one of the consecrators of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. My surname is Chun. I heard that the 14th young master wants to meet our manager." The middle-aged man looked at Chu Fengyan and said. He didn't care about Chu Fengyan's disturbance just now. With Hai Shirsi's status, although the Lunar Ocean Commerce wasn't afraid of him, they wouldn't offend him for no reason. Even if Chu Fengyan wanted to kill Steward Wu, there wouldn't be many people who would stop him. However, Chu Fengyan came to the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild to make a deal with them. He also didn't have any intention of falling out with the Lunar Ocean Commerce firm. Since Chu Fengyan didn't mention it, the middle-aged man naturally wouldn't mention it either. So it's the Oblivion Sea King. Chu Fengyan's mind spun. Hearing the surname Chun, Chu Fengyan knew the identity of this middle-aged man from Hai Shirsi's memories. The Oblivion Sea King was once an overlord of a region. Later on, he joined the Lunar Ocean Trade Union and became one of their consecrators. "I came to the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce to make a deal with the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. However, this deal is very big, so I'm going to meet with the manager of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce." Chu Fengyan said calmly. "A deal? The manager of the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce isn't here today. If we're talking about business, I have full authority to make decisions for the Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce. 14th young master, please speak your mind." The Oblivion Sea King said with a smile. "This time I went out and found a spiritual stone vein. I want to use the spiritual stones to buy something." Chu Fengyan said, "Spiritual stone vein? Good stuff. 14th young master, you've gained a lot from this trip." The Oblivion Sea King's eyes lit up. A spiritual stone vein contained wealth of billions of spiritual stones. If it was some ancient spiritual stone vein, it would contain even more spiritual stones. However, the value of spirit stone vein was still related to the quality of the spirit stone vein. If the spirit stone vein was below the top grade spirit stone vein, the value would not be high. If the spirit stone vein was above the top grade spirit stone vein, then the wealth contained would definitely be an astronomical figure. This was a big deal. The Oblivion Sea King's expression changed and said with great importance, 14th young master, what do you want to buy? Immortal stones. Chu Fengmian's answer was also very straightforward. For Chu Fengmian, what he needed most now was immortal stones. Of course, for Chu Fengmian, the sword totem's value could be said to be higher than immortal stones. It was also more useful to Chu Fengmian. However, the sword totem was something that could only be encountered and not sought. It was very difficult to obtain information about the sword totem. If he could buy a large amount of immortal stones, it could also help Chu Fengmian step into the half-step celestial realm. Once he stepped into the half-step celestial realm, Chu Fengmian's strength would undergo earth-shaking changes. Immortal stones? The Oblivion Sea King was not surprised when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. With the identity of 14th young master, the things he needed were not ordinary. Immortal stones, whether it was for the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu to break into the half-step celestial realm, or for the future half-step celestial realm to officially break into the celestial realm. Immortal stones were even used when refining spiritual weapons and divine elixirs. It could be said that they were one of the most useful treasures for half-step celestial realm experts. The Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild did deals with half-step celestial realm experts on a daily basis. They had a stock of immortal stones. How many do you want? 14th young master. The Oblivion Sea King asked. A lot, preferably a few hundred. It would be better if you have 1,000. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and said casually. His tone was incomparably generous. A few hundred? 1,000? The Oblivion Sea King was shocked when he heard this. A few drops of sweat appeared on his forehead. These were immortal stones. If one immortal stone was exchanged for spirit stones, it would be worth tens of millions. 4 half-step celestial realm experts, even their entire wealth, could not afford many immortal stones. Usually, buying dozens of immortal stones in one go was considered a big deal. But now, Chu Fengmian wanted to buy hundreds or even thousands of immortal stones in one go. 14th young master, the value of these immortal stones. The Oblivion Sea King glanced at Chu Fengmian and did not continue his words. But the meaning of his words was incomparably clear. Immortal stones were so expensive that even 14th young master might not be able to afford them. At least a few hundred or even thousands of immortal stones. Even now, Chu Fengmian said that he had obtained a spirit stone vein. The wealth of a spirit stone vein was far from enough to exchange for a few hundred immortal stones. Is that so? Are you worried that I can't afford it? Chu Fengmian was not angry. Instead, he smiled and flipped his palm. Suddenly, a spirit stone the size of a thumb appeared in his palm. Chapter 1895. This is a divine grade spirit stone? The Oblivion Sea King was shocked when he saw the spirit stone in Chu Fengmian's hand. 14th young master obtained a divine grade spirit stone vein. Rumor has it that a divine grade spirit stone vein hasn't appeared in the vast sea starfield for hundreds of years. 14th young master actually obtained an entire divine grade spirit stone vein. A divine grade spirit stone was naturally not worth the Oblivion Sea King's shock. However, Chu Fengmian had just said that he had obtained an entire spirit stone vein. Of course, not all divine grade spirit stone veins were divine grade spirit stone veins. However, even if there were thousands of divine grade spirit stones, the value would still be astronomical. Even the entire Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild might not be able to take out thousands of divine grade spirit stones. Although divine grade spirit stones were not as valuable as immortal stones, many half-step celestial realm experts needed them. They were priceless items. Now that Chu Fengmian had obtained a divine grade spirit stone vein, his wealth was definitely far beyond the Oblivion Sea King's imagination. Not bad. Although I didn't kill the remaining members of the Lan family and obtain the Black Whale bloodline, I was lucky enough to find a divine-grade spirit stone vein. Chu Fengyan sneered with a hint of complacency. Let's trade it with divine-grade spirit stones. I'll take all the immortal stones your Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild has. Chu Fengyan said as he waved his hand. A large mass of divine-grade spirit stones flew out. There were at least 4,000 to 5,000 divine-grade spirit stones in this mass of spirit stones. This was also a display of Chu Fengyan's wealth. Of course, the so-called divine-grade spirit stone vein was made up by Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan had a divine vein and could condense an endless amount of divine-grade spirit stones. It could be said that he was much wealthier than a divine-grade spirit stone vein. Chu Fengyan already had about 500 immortal stones in his hand. As long as he could obtain another 500 immortal stones, he could find an opportunity to break through the bottleneck of the half-step celestial realm. However, it was best to prepare more immortal stones just in case. The price of failing to break through was not something Chu Fengyan could bear. Chu Fengyan would only choose to break through to the next realm when he was fully prepared. To Chu Fengyan, the more immortal stones, the better. The more, the better. Furthermore, when Chu Fengyan reached the half-step celestial realm in the future, he would need immortal stones to undergo the celestial tribulation. This time, Chu Fengyan wanted to buy as many immortal stones as he could from Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. So many divine-grade spirit stones. Oblivion Sea King was shocked when he saw Chu Fengyan casually take out 4,000 to 5,000 divine-grade spirit stones. He was an overlord in the Songhai Starfield, but this was the first time he had seen so many divine-grade spirit stones. Moreover, seeing how Chu Fengyan could casually take it out, Chu Fengyan's true wealth was much greater than this. This Hai Shirsi is really lucky. With so many divine-grade spirit stones, this is definitely an ancient spirit stone mine. It might even be from the Middle or Ancient era. The Oblivion Sea King was also a little jealous, but he did not dare to snatch it. If it were someone else, the Oblivion Sea King would have thought of snatching it. However, Hai Shirsi was a core disciple of Ocean's Word sect after all, and was given the surname Hai. He would have a chance to compete for the position of Ocean's Word sect master in the future. He was just a consecrator of Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. If he dared to snatch it, he would be annihilated by Ocean's Word sect the next day. According to the price, 100 divine grade spirit stones for 1 immortal stone. The Oblivion Sea King collected his thoughts and looked at Chu Fengyan. The price is fair. Chu Fengyan recalled Hai Shirsi's memories and found the price to be fair. How many immortal stones does your Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild have? I want all of them. Chu Fengyan said casually. A few hundred immortal stones were equivalent to tens of thousands of divine grade spirit stones. Although Chu Fengyan's refining speed was not as fast as refining King and Emperor grade spirit stones, he could easily refine tens of thousands of them. However, after such a long time, Chu Fengyan had refined hundreds of thousands of divine grade spirit stones, which was enough to buy immortal stones. Moreover, if Chu Fengyan was willing to refine them, he could refine tens of thousands of divine grade spirit stones in a few days. Of course, Chu Fengyan didn't feel the pinch when spending divine grade spirit stones. Well, our Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild can only take out about 200 immortal stones. The Oblivion Sea King pondered for a moment after hearing Chu Fengyan's big demand. So little? Chu Fengyan was disappointed when he heard the number. After all, Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild was one of the largest merchant guilds in South Sea City. He had thought that Chu Fengyan could buy 400 to 500 immortal stones from them. But now, there were only about 200 immortal stones, which was much less than Chu Fengyan's estimate. 14th Young Master. You may not know this, but in a month's time, it will be the Ocean Emperor's 50,000th birthday celebration. The immortal stones in South Sea City have long been sold out. The Oblivion Sea King said helplessly. Our Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild only has some stock because we received a batch of immortal stones a few days ago. Other merchant guilds might not even be able to take out dozens of immortal stones. The Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration? The Ocean Emperor was the oldest celestial realm expert in the Shanghai starfield. He was also the oldest ancestor of the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect, an antique among antiques. During the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration, many antiques in the Shanghai starfield would come out of seclusion to congratulate him. The various elders of the Oceanic Sword Sect would personally come to the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect to congratulate him. The Ocean Emperor could be said to be the strongest expert in the Shanghai starfield. Many young members of the Oceanic tribe would also come to congratulate him, hoping to gain his favor. The youngest celestial realm expert in the Oceanic Sacrificial Sect, the East Forest Ocean Emperor, was the Ocean Emperor's disciple. It was said that the East Forest Ocean Emperor had once been chosen by the Ocean Emperor at a birthday celebration and taken in as a disciple. In just a few thousand years, the East Forest Ocean Emperor had become the Ocean Emperor of his generation. After all, the Ocean Emperor was a true celestial realm expert. Therefore, the congratulatory gifts would at least be useful to a celestial realm expert. Compared to immortal herbs, immortal medicines, and other precious treasures, immortal stones were the easiest to find. Therefore, every merchant guild would buy all of their immortal stones. Chu Fengmian knew about this from Hai Shirsi's memories, but he didn't know how to react for a while. The timing was somewhat unlucky. At least, it would be impossible for Chu Fengmian to buy a large number of immortal stones before the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration. Chapter 1896. After learning the reason, Chu Fengmian said directly. Chu Fengmian could slowly accumulate immortal stones, so he would buy the immortal stones in the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild first. 14th Young Master, please wait a moment. The Oblivion Sea King heard Chu Fengmian's words and disappeared from the room. I can go and take a look at the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration. I'm afraid the Blue Dragon sect will also send people over to investigate the situation of the Oceanite sect. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. The person he wanted to kill was Lan Ming, an elder of the Oceanite sect with a noble status. If Chu Fengmian killed Lan Ming, the Oceanite sect would never let him go. Chu Fengmian also wanted to know the true strength of the Oceanite sect, so he was looking for an opportunity to act. The Oceanite sect's strength was mysterious even in Hai Shirsi's eyes. However, all the martial artists and Yao gods in the Shanghai Star region knew one thing, and that was to never provoke the Oceanite sect. Even someone as arrogant as Hai Shirsi didn't dare to provoke the Oceanite sect. The Oceanite sect's experts would certainly come out for the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration. Even the sect's old antiques would come out one after another to celebrate the Ocean Emperor's birthday. Not only the Shanghai Star region, but also the forces of the surrounding star regions would send people to celebrate the Ocean Emperor's 50,000th birthday celebration. This was also the best opportunity to see the true strength of the Oceanite sect. While Chu Fengmian was thinking about the Ocean Emperor's birthday celebration, the Oblivion Sea King returned to the room, but his expression wasn't good. What's going on? Chu Fengmian was the first to speak. Seeing the Oblivion Sea King's expression, Chu Fengmian guessed that there was a problem with the immortal stones. The Oblivion Sea King walked over and hesitated for a moment before speaking. 14th Young Master, someone has come to buy immortal stones. Another consecrator of the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild has already agreed. Who is it? How dare you come and steal the things I want to buy? Chu Fengmian frowned and snorted coldly. Chu Fengmian was already dissatisfied with the 200 immortal stones, but now someone wanted to steal them. Take me there. I want to see who dares to steal my immortal stones. Really? Hai Shirsi, it's been a long time since we last met. You've become even more arrogant. You dare to show off in front of me? Just as Chu Fengmian left the room, two figures suddenly walked in from outside. The middle-aged man walking behind them was dressed like the Oblivion Sea King. He was also a consecrator of the Lunar Ocean Trade Union. However, the middle-aged man was extremely courteous to the young man walking in front of him. This was a young man who looked to be in his early 20s. He was a member of the sea race and had a sharp sword intent. One could feel it from afar. He was also a powerful sword cultivator. The voice just now was from this young man. Hai 13. When Chu Fengmian saw this young man, a name appeared in his mind. This was Hai Shirsan, the 13th prince who had followed Chu Fengmian to the southern city of Zhenhai. Who would have thought that he would run into them in the Lunar Ocean Trade Union? Moreover, Haishur-san was also here for the immortal stones. I heard that you want to buy immortal stones? Unfortunately, Consecrated One has already agreed to sell the immortal stones to me. Haishur-san sized up Chu Fengmian, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. Of course, if you come and beg me, I can give you a few immortal stones. How about it? 14th prince. The 13th prince came first this time. We can only sell the immortal stones to him. Standing behind Haishur-si, Consecrated One explained. Whether it was Haishur-san or Haishur-si, the Lunar Ocean Trade Union didn't want to offend them. Is that so? So what if he came first? Isn't the rule of the Lunar Ocean Trade Union that the highest bidder wins? How many immortal stones does he want to buy? Chu Fengmian suddenly asked the Oblivion Sea King beside him. The 13th prince wants to buy 100 immortal stones, all in sacred grade spirit stones. The Oblivion Sea King replied, 100? Sacred grade spirit stones? Chu Fengmian sneered with a disdainful smile. Haishur-san, a stingy person like you doesn't deserve to be a core disciple of the Ocean's Word sect. Chu Fengmian sneered. I want all the immortal stones in the Lunar Ocean Trade Union, all in divine grade spirit stones, twice the price. What do you think? All in divine grade spirit stones, twice the price. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. The Oblivion Sea King was still fine, as he had seen Chu Fengmian's wealth. But Haishur-san and Consecrated One were shocked, especially Consecrated One, who couldn't believe it. Is what the 14th prince said true? Of course it's true. Why would I lie to you? Here are 40,000 divine grade spirit stones. Count them yourself. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and tore the space apart. Suddenly, a pile of divine grade spirit stones flew out. 40,000 divine grade spirit stones piled up into a small mountain. Consecrated One looked at the pile of divine grade spirit stones with his mouth wide open. He didn't make a sound for a long time. Even though he was a half-step celestial realm expert, he had never seen so many divine grade spirit stones. The Oblivion Sea King was also shocked. He couldn't help but take a few more glances at Chu Fengmian. Even though he knew that Chu Fengmian had obtained a divine grade spirit stone vein, he still didn't see the divine grade spirit stones as wealth by directly buying them at double the price. Chu Fengmian's actions couldn't be described as extravagant. Haishur-san wanted to say something, but when he saw the mountain of divine grade spirit stones, he fell silent and couldn't say anything. The highest bidder wins. Haishur-san, if you can offer a higher price, I won't compete with you for the immortal stones. What do you think? Chu Fengmian looked at Haishur-san and sneered. Haishur-san and Haishur-san have been fighting for a long time. Even if they didn't have a goal, they would still fight for it. Moreover, both of them wanted the immortal stones. In the eyes of others, Chu Fengmian's action was just a grudge against Haishur-san. This Haishur-san is just a grudge. The Oblivion Sea King and Consecrated One looked at each other and saw through each other's thoughts. However, neither of them had the intention to stop the fight. They were happy to see the fight between Chu Fengmian and Haishur-san. After all, the one who would benefit in the end would be the Lunar Ocean Commerce. All right, Haishur-san, it seems like you've obtained quite a fortuitous encounter this time. However, you have to be careful. Don't let your encounter be taken away by someone else in a few days. Haishur-san stared at Chu Fengmian and snorted coldly. He then left the Lunar Ocean Commerce. Chapter 1898. It was the dream of all half-step celestial realm experts to transcend the Deva tribulation and ascend to immortality. Even in the Songhai Star Zone, there were only a few who could transcend the Deva tribulation and ascend to immortality in the past 1,000 years. Many half-step celestial realm experts did not attempt to transcend the Deva tribulation because they did not have enough experience. However, if there was a chance, even the Oblivion Sea King and Consecrated One wanted to transcend the Deva tribulation. Although the 9 domains have declined and are not worth mentioning, the 3 sacred domains have their eyes on the 9 domains now. We have to be fully prepared if we want to go. Consecrator One was calmer than the Oblivion Sea King. He thought for a moment and said, "We will plan this after the Ocean Emperor's birthday banquet. Yes, the other chambers of commerce should not know about Hai Shirsi's great opportunity. We have to take this opportunity to rope him in. The Oblivion Sea King and Consecrator when chatted for a while and then left. It seems that the Shanghai Star Zone has also heard about the 9 domains. The news spread quickly. Chu Fumian strolled around the Jinhai city while thinking about the conversation between Consecrator 1 and the Oblivion Sea King. The Lunar Ocean Chamber of Commerce had set up layers of restrictive formations to prevent people from prying and intruding. However, Chu Fumian's spiritual consciousness was so strong that the restrictive formations could not stop his spiritual consciousness at all. Chu Fumian had also heard the conversation between the two of them. They had also mentioned the 9 domains in their conversation. The news of the 9 domains' reappearance had spread far and wide. The Shanghai Star Zone was dozens of star zones away from the 9 domains. It took Chu Fumian a lot of time to get there. Now, the news of the 9 domains' reappearance had spread from the Shanghai Star Zone. In the future, there would definitely be more and more experts pouring into the 9 regions. Once upon a time, the sacred region was extremely attractive to any warrior or Yao god. When the time came, the 9 domains would be more chaotic than it was now. Let's go to the Sea Sword sect and get the Sword Principle totem first. Chu Fumian sped up and walked toward the center of Jinan City. Jinan City had a gate to the Seasword sect. However, along the way, Chu Fumian was still flipping through Hai Shirsi's memories, looking for information about Gu Hai. The Oblivion Sea King and Consecrated One both attributed the increase in strength of Chu Fumian's disguise as Hai 14 to Gu Hai. After going through Hai Shirsi's memories, Chu Fumian understood that this Gu Sea was actually in existence similar to the Sinkhole Realm. It had buried the remains of countless ancient sea tribe sections. At the same time, countless treasures were buried. However, compared to Sinkhole Sky, Gu Hai was even more dangerous. No matter how strong one was, they would have a slim chance of survival if they stepped into Sinkhole Sky. In Hai Shirsi's memories, he was terrified of the Gu Sea. He had never stepped in the Gu Sea before. Xiao Qin's memories of Gu Hai were based on the descriptions of others. The Gu Sea was filled with danger. However, it also had countless treasures, attracting the cultivators and fiendish immortals of the vast sea star field to explore it. Any cultivator or fiendish immortal that could walk out of the Gu Sea alive would obtain great benefits. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they could reach the heavens in one step. The Gu Sea's remains. Just nice. I'll use this as a reason. After all, not many people know about the mysteries of the Gu Sea. Chu Fumian had turned into Hai Shirsi, which was much stronger than the real Hai Shirsi. Originally, he wanted to find a reason. Now, he could use the Gu Sea's remains as a reason. Furthermore, the Seasword sect respected strength. The stronger one was, the easier it would be to do things there. While Chu Fumian was thinking, he had already arrived at the center of Jinan City. An illusory gate appeared before Chu Fumian. This gate was half illusory and half real, making it impossible to see through its mysteries. This was the gate to the Seasword sect. The disciples of the Seasword sect could use this gate to return to the Seasword sect. At a glance, many Seasword sect disciples had already gathered in front of the gate. There were more than 1 million disciples in the Seasword sect. Many disciples came and went every day. Some of the Seasword sect disciples were also maintaining order, guiding the Seasword sect disciples into the gate. The Seasword sect was not actually located in the vast sea star field. Instead, it was located in a small, independent world outside. Passing through the gate to Jinan City required one to travel through a certain space to return to the Seasword sect. The spatial turbulence was extremely ferocious. It could be considered a natural barrier. Even Emperor Gu did not dare to take the risk. These Seasword sect disciples were waiting in line. They wanted to gather together and ride the ark together to pass through the spatial turbulence and return to the Seasword sect. When Chu Fumian arrived, he glanced at the Seasword sect disciples in line. His figure flashed, and he directly flew over the crowd. When the Seasword sect disciples who were maintaining order saw Chu Fumian flying over, no one stopped him. Instead, they all stood up respectfully. Who is this? There's no need to line up. This is against the rules. Some of the new disciples of the Sea's sect saw this scene and could not help but speak out. Shut up. This is the 14th young master. If he hears you, you won't even know how you died. Another disciple of the sect beside him said hurriedly, 14th young master, is this the core disciple of our sect? That new disciple said in surprise when he saw Chu Fengmian step into the illusory gate alone. Is he going to cross the spatial turbulence alone? Humph. The young masters of the sect are all like gods. They are omnipotent. We need to use the arc to resist the spatial turbulence, but it's like scratching an itch for them. That disciple of the sect snorted coldly. It is said that the third young master once fought alone against 3 half-step celestial being realm experts. He killed 2 of them and forced the famous glittering jewel 3 demons to flee. The young master's magical powers are not something that you can understand. Fought against 3 half-step celestial realm demons alone and killed 2 of them. That new disciple of the sect swallowed a mouthful of saliva in disbelief. Work hard. We're just outer disciples now. As long as we advance to the inner sect, our status will be incomparably noble in the future. Every sect will treat us with respect. Looking at Chu Fengmian's leaving figure, that disciple of the sect said longingly. In a chapter 1899, Chu Fengmian stepped through the illusory door, and a mountain range appeared in front of him. At the end of the mountain range was a sea, and that was where the sect was located. It didn't take long for a spatial turbulence to sweep across the mountains. The sect disciples on the arcs were all working together to resist the attacks of the spatial turbulence. Even the ancient emperor could be sucked into the turbulence of space and be torn apart by the power contained within. However, Chu Fengmian was not afraid at all. He allowed the spatial turbulence to attack him. He took a step forward and turned into a ray of light, flying towards the sea at the end of the mountain range. Beside Chu Fengmian, a burst of sword intent burst out and shrouded Chu Fengmian. When the spatial turbulence was 3 feet away from Chu Fengmian, it was shattered by the sword intent that shrouded his body. The spatial turbulence couldn't harm Chu Fengmian at all. Amazing. The sword intent is enough to break the spatial turbulence. The strength of the 14th young master is terrifying. Within the mountain range, there were many arcs that were traveling. The disciples of the sect were all shocked when they witnessed this scene. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's escape light had surpassed many arcs, flying towards the end of the mountain range. At this moment, a sharp sword intent suddenly fell from the sky, and a ray of sword light appeared. The ray of sword light appeared silently and slashed towards Chu Fengmian. The ray of sword light contained killing intent, and it could be called a fatal strike. Someone had suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian in the mountain range. However, Chu Fengmian had already expected this scene. The moment he saw the ray of sword light, the spiritual sword that belonged to Hai Shursi on his back suddenly fell into his hand, and he also slashed out. The 2 rays of sword light collided in the air and shattered at the same time. Hai Shur-san, there's no need to hide. Come out. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he stared at the sky and slowly said. He already knew who the person who suddenly attacked was. It was only Hai Shur-san. Hai Shur-san was forced to retreat by Chu Fengmian in the Moon Ocean Commerce Chamber of Commerce, which made him lose face. With Hai Shur-san's character, he would definitely not tolerate it. Sure enough, he chose to make a move in the mountain range. Although the disciples of the sect were not allowed to kill their fellow disciples, no one would care if there was a fight. Even if they were injured in the fight, the sect would not care. Within a sect, only constant battles could give birth to one expert after another. Hai Shur-san, it seems like you did have a fortuitous encounter. You can actually block my sword. A figure descended from the sky and stood in front of Chu Fengmian. Traces of killing intent could be seen in his eyes. It was Hai Shur-san. Hai Shur-san, I heard that you have a whole divine spiritual stone vein. Why don't you share such a good thing with me? I don't want much. Just give me a few tens of thousands of divine grade spirit stones, and I'll let you go. Hai San said his voice was full of greed. Chu Fengyan sneered in his heart when he heard this. Hai San was eyeing on his divine stone. San, asked for tens of thousands of divine, spiritual stones. Since Hai San was here to pick a fight, Chu Fengyan naturally would not be polite to him. What a joke. Hai San, do you think you're the Ocean Emperor? Let me go. Do you think you're my opponent today? Chu Fengyan looked at Hai San and said with a cold smile, You've offended me today. Kneel down now, and I'll consider letting you go. Presumptuous. Hai San, it seems like you're tired of living. Hai San shouted angrily. His sword intent burst out. Sword light flickered, and several sword chi slashed towards Chu Fengyan from all directions. Is that so? Hai San, do you really think I'm not your opponent? Normally, I just don't want to reveal my strength, so I'll let you have a taste of my strength. Since you're courting death today, I'll fulfill your wish and show you my strength. Chu Fengyan laughed. He took a step forward and rushed towards Hai San in an instant. The sword in his hand condensed spiritual power and turned into a sword light that swept down. Chu Fengyan's swordsmanship was the seaward sex swordsmanship. However, with Chu Fengyan's understanding of swordsmanship, the same swordsmanship and the same power would be completely different. An ancient shadow appeared behind Chu Fengyan. It was the shadow of the founding ancestor of Seaward sect. Chu Fengyan's swordsmanship had reached the great completion, which was enough to activate the ancient power contained within. The founding ancestor's shadow and Chu Fengyan's sword merged into one. The power was boundless, and the moment it struck, it swept away everything. All of Hai San's sword blades were mercilessly smashed to pieces. The tyrannical spiritual power exploded. Countless disciples of Seaward sect in the mountains witnessed this scene. That's the founding ancestor of Seaward. Who is the founding ancestor of Seaward sect? Whose swordsmanship can make the founding ancestor appear? Isn't it said that only the great completion of swordsmanship of Seaward sect can do this? Looks like it's the 14th young master. Hai San, how is it possible? When did his swordsmanship reach such a level? This scene caused countless people to feel that it was inconceivable. However, what happened next caused them to feel even more astonished. A figure was sent flying by the sword. It was Hai San. Hai San was sent flying by a single move. He couldn't even resist a single move. Hai San was sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was extremely pale. Your strength? How is it possible? Hai San was forced to retreat. He stared at Chu Fengyan with a look of disbelief. Hai San, don't you know? I'm just too lazy to take action. Do you really think that's all I've got? Chu Fengyan looked at Hai San with a disdainful smile. Get lost. I won't kill you. But remember, if you dare to appear in front of me in the future, I won't let you go. Let's go. Hai San didn't hesitate. He turned into a ray of light and disappeared in an instant. Although Seaward sect didn't care about the fights between disciples, Hai San was still a core disciple. Killing Hai San would cause a lot of trouble. It wasn't worth it for Chu Fengyan to cause trouble for Hai San. It wouldn't be good if it affected Chu Fengyan's plan to obtain the sword principle totem. Therefore, Chu Fengyan let Hai San go today. After defeating Hai San, Chu Fengyan turned into a ray of light and continued to fly towards the end of the mountains. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 1900. I didn't expect Hai San to be defeated in one move. Hai actually has such strength? Hai strength has actually reached such a level? I wonder what kind of fortuitous encounter he had that allowed his strength to progress so quickly. Was Hai hiding his strength? Or did he have a fortuitous encounter? He must have had a fortuitous encounter. With Hai character, he wouldn't have shown his strength if he had such strength earlier. He must have gained something recently. Greater mastery of swordsmanship. There aren't many elders in our Seaward sect who can achieve this. Among the core disciples, only the 3rd young master can achieve this. Greater mastery of swordsmanship. With Hai strength, it won't be a problem for him to be ranked in the top 10 among the core disciples. On a mountain peak of the seaward sect, a few people were looking at the direction of the battle. Every one of them had an incomparably powerful aura. They were all core disciples, and there were even elders of the seaward sect. A distance of 1,000,000 miles was incomparably far for people like them. However, to them, everything that had just happened was clearly visible to them. Third young master. Hai-Shirsi will become a great threat in the future. Everyone's gazes suddenly fell on the young man at the head of the group. He was like the moon surrounded by a myriad of stars. Even some of the disciples of the seaward sect were extremely respectful towards the young man. The third young master was the person ranked third among the core disciples. However, the third young master wasn't called Hai-San, but Hai-Changa. The core disciples of the seaward sect were all known by their ranking, but Hai-Changa didn't care about the rules. The elders of the seaward sect didn't express any objection, which proved Hai-Changa's extraordinary status. Although he was ranked third, there were quite a few elders and disciples in the entire seasword sect who believed that he would be the next sect head of the sect. Because of this, even the other core disciples and even a few elders were incomparably respectful towards Hai-Changa. Greater mastery of swordsmanship is nothing, Hai-Changa said calmly, but his tone was filled with boundless confidence. Even after seeing Chu Fengyan's strength, he still didn't put Chu Fengyan in his eyes. Indeed, even if Hai-Shirsi had some fortuitous encounters, how could he be compared to the third young master? That's true. I just had some fortuitous encounters. With Hai-Shirsi's arrogant personality, he will suffer a great loss sooner or later. Hearing Hai-Changa's words, several core disciples at the side agreed. It said that Hai-Shirsi obtained everything from the ancient sea. Suddenly, the sea sword sect elder who had his eyes closed and seemed to be conversing with others suddenly opened his eyes and spoke. I received news from the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild that Hai-Shirsi spent a lot of money in the Lunar Ocean Merchant Guild. It is said that he obtained an entire divine grade spirit stone vein. It seems like Hai-Shirsi went to Guhai. Aside from Guhai, there cannot be any other place with a divine grade spirit stone vein. A divine grade spirit stone mine. How much wealth is this? Guhai. This Hai-Shirsi sure has guts. He actually dared to charge into Guhai. From the looks of it, aside from obtaining an entire divine grade spirit stone vein, this Hai-Shirsi has also obtained other fortuitous encounters. No wonder his sword techniques have improved by leaps and bounds. It turns out that he obtained Guhai's treasure. The few core disciples discussed among themselves. Many of their tones were filled with envy. Fortuitous encounter in Guhai. Hai-Changa's eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. Then, he said, find an opportunity to pull this Hai-Shirsi over. This Guhai's fortuitous encounter is useful to me. Yes, the few core disciples replied respectfully. After a few more exchanges, the crowd on the mountain peak gradually dispersed. Chu Fengyan did not know that he had already been noticed by others. However, Chu Fengyan defeated Hai-Shirsi under the watchful eyes of the crowd to establish his prestige and display his strength. In the sea sword sect, strength was respected. The stronger Chu Fengyan displayed his strength, the more he would be valued by the sea sword sect. At that time, it would be easier for him to comprehend the Sword Dao Totem. The Sword Dao Totem was the most precious treasure of the sea sword sect. Even the core disciples were not qualified to comprehend it casually. They had to apply for an opportunity and spend a large amount of contribution points to comprehend it. Chu Fengyan wanted to go to the sea sword sect, so the first thing he needed to do was to accumulate contribution points. Then, with the strength he displayed, it shouldn't be a problem for him to apply for the opportunity to comprehend the Sword Dao Totem. When he saw the Sword Dao Totem, it would be Chu Fengyan's opportunity to seize it. The news that Chu Fengyan defeated Hai-Shirsi in one move had already spread in the sea sword sect. Chu Fengyan's escape light reached the end of the mountains and stepped into the sea. Under the sea, there was a huge city built on the bottom of the sea. Although this city was not as big as the Jinan city, the formations and restrictions set up in this city were countless times stronger than the one in the Jinan city. This city was where the sea sword sect was located. It was the real lair of the sea sword sect. As soon as he stepped into the city, Chu Fengmian felt a surge of spiritual energy shrouding his body. It seemed to be probing Chu Fengmian's identity. This was the lair of the Sea Sword sect, so it certainly would not allow outsiders to enter easily. However, Chu Fengmian allowed the spiritual power to probe him and completely ignored it. His true strength had been hidden. Unless it was a real celestial realm expert, no one could see through Chu Fengmian's real strength. Soon, the spiritual powers probing ended and dispersed. Chu Fengmian landed in the city, then walked towards the northwest. The mission hall was located in the northwest of the city. It was the place where the Sea Sword sect issued missions to the disciples. Completing the missions given by the Sea Sword sect was the easiest way to earn contribution points. Chu Fengmian also planned to complete a few missions to earn contribution points first. Along the way, the disciples of the Sea Sword sect all retreated when they saw Chu Fengmian coming. Their manners were incomparably respectful. Even many core disciples stayed far away when they saw Chu Fengmian. The news that Chu Fengmian defeated Hai San in one move had already spread in the Sea Sword sect. Defeating Hai San in one move, even among the core disciples and elders of the Sea Sword sect, there were very few people who could do this. Chu Fengmian had established a supreme prestige with the identity of Hai San. No one dared to provoke him at this time. End of chapter. Chapter 1901. Many disciples of the Sea Sword sect were talking about how he defeated Hai San in one move. Along the way, Chu Fengmian also felt countless gazes. Some were envious, some were jealous, some were respectful, and others were different. Chu Fengmian didn't bother to pay attention to them. After all, he wasn't the real Hai Shi. His purpose in coming to the Sea Sword sect was only to obtain the Sword Principle Totem. As long as he obtained the Sword Principle Totem, Chu Fengmian could leave and have nothing to do with the Sea Sword sect. Chu Fengmian walked all the way and soon arrived in front of Big Hall. This was the mission hall, the place where the Sea Sword sect issued missions. The mission hall was considered the most prosperous place in the Sea Sword sect. The disciples who came and went to accept missions and came back to submit them saw Chu Fengmian and stepped aside, making a path for him. It's Hai Shi. He's going to accept missions as soon as he came back. Didn't they say that he had a great adventure and obtained a lot of wealth? He actually came to accept missions directly. It seems that Hai Shi's ambition is not small, some disciples of the Sea Sword sect whispered among themselves. Chu Fengmian didn't care about these people's discussion and stepped into the mission hall with his head held high. 14th Young Master, what kind of mission do you want to accept? Some of the elders in charge of issuing missions in the mission hall greeted Chu Fengmian politely when they saw his arrival. If it was in the past, these elders would not be so courteous. After all, the status of an elder was higher than that of a core disciple. But now that the news of Chu Fengmian defeating Hai Shi in one move spread, the elders' attitude also changed accordingly. In the eyes of these elders, Hai Shi's future achievement was only to become an elder. At most, he would be on equal footing with them, so they didn't care about him. But now, Hai Shi had a great adventure and even had a chance to become the sect master. Even if there was a slight chance, they would try to win over Hai Shi now to avoid being punished in the future. This was the benefit of strength. Only strength could earn people's respect. I want to accept a few heaven-level missions. The more contribution points, the better. Chu Fengmian walked to the front of an elder and said indifferently. The missions of the Sea Sword sect were also divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. Yellow missions were suitable for outer disciples, Black missions for inner disciples, Earth missions for sea disciples, and Heaven missions for core disciples and elders. Hai Shi's identity was naturally going to accept Heaven-level missions. These missions have just been received. The mission hall elder took out a few jade talismans and handed Chu Fengmian. These talismans recorded the contents of missions. Generally, even a level 9 ancient emperor would find it difficult to complete a heaven-grade mission. In order to complete a heaven-grade mission, one had to be at least a peak level 9 ancient emperor. To high sect master was the sea, sword C was to the sea sect were assassins assassinated assassins. But Chu Fengmian looked at a few of them and frowned. He wasn't very satisfied. The highest reward of these missions was only 15,000 contribution points. The lowest ones were only a few thousand contribution points. According to Hai Shursi's memory, one would need 100,000 contribution points to comprehend the Sword Dao totem. Although Chu Fengmian knew from Hai Shursi's memory that the average reward of the heaven-level mission was around 10,000 contribution points, this was too little for Chu Fengmian. Moreover, these missions were very scattered. It would take Chu Fengmian a lot of time to travel. He didn't want to waste so much time. 14th Young Master, are you not satisfied? Are there no missions you want to accept? The mission hall elder looked at Chu Fengmian's expression and asked, That's right. These missions are too easy and I need a lot of contribution points. Aren't there any harder missions with higher contribution points? Chu Fengmian put down the jade talismans and said, Missions with higher contribution points. The mission hall elder looked at the jade talismans in his hand as if he was looking for something. Suddenly, he raised his head and said to Chu Fengmian as if he thought of something. There is indeed a new mission, but the difficulty of this mission isn't something a core disciple can accept. Is that so? I'd like to see if there's any mission that I can't accept. Give it to me. Hearing this, Chu Fengmian said loudly. For Chu Fengmian, it didn't matter if the mission was difficult. Since he wasn't in the Seaward sect, he didn't need to worry about anything and could use his full strength. If Chu Fengmian used his full strength, he could even kill a peak half-step celestial realm expert. This so-called difficulty was nothing to Chu Fengmian. This is the mission. The mission hall elder looked at Chu Fengmian's arrogant look and didn't stop him. He moved his palm and a jade talisman flew out. This jade talisman looked different from the previous ones. There was a word engraved on it. Suicide mission. Chu Fengmian's eyes lit up when he saw the jade talisman. Chu Fengmian also knew that the missions issued by the mission hall, in addition to the Heaven and Earth Fantasy mission, also included the suicide mission. This kind of suicide mission was extremely dangerous even for the elders of the Seaward sect. Therefore, it was called suicide mission. As for the core disciples, they didn't dare to take this suicide mission. However, the difficulty of the suicide mission was high, and the contribution points awarded were much more, even several times that of the heaven-level mission. Chu Fengmian took the jade talisman and injected spiritual power into it. The content of the mission appeared in Chu Fengmian's mind. Reward, 100,000 contribution points. Seeing the number of the reward, Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. After completing this suicide mission, Chu Fengmian would have 100,000 contribution points to comprehend the sword principle totem. 100,000 contribution points for a core disciple would take years to accumulate. However, with such a generous reward, the difficulty of this mission wouldn't be easy. Chu Fengmian glanced at it and roughly understood. This mission was to eliminate a force that had always been an enemy of the Seaward sect, the Glittering Jewel Dynasty. The Glittering Jewel Dynasty was a demonic force that was established in the Songhai Star Zone. It burned, killed, and plundered, destroying countless small forces. The strength of the Glittering Jewel Dynasty was extremely terrifying. They had 3 half-step celestial realm experts, known as the Glittering Jewel 3 Demons. Therefore, not many people dared to provoke the Glittering Jewel Dynasty. However, just a while ago, 2 of the Glittering Jewel 3 Demons were killed, and their strength was greatly reduced. This mission was to directly destroy the Glittering Jewel Dynasty and kill the remaining one of the Glittering Jewel 3 Demons. First, set a small goal, such as 1 second. Remember, Book Guesthouse mobile version website. Chapter 1902. The Glittering Jewel 3 Demons must have been killed by the 3rd Young Master. When Chu Fengmian saw this name, he suddenly remembered what someone had been talking about. The 3rd Young Master of the Sea Sword sect fought against the Glittering Jewel 3 Demons alone and killed 2 of them. Because of this, the strength of the Glittering Jewel Dynasty was greatly reduced. The Sea Sword sect also issued a task for their disciples and elders to eradicate the glittering Jewel dynasty. This task is indeed extremely difficult. It can be called a suicide mission. After reading the content of the Jade Token, Chu Fumian understood why this task was called a suicide mission. If he wanted to complete this mission, he would need to kill at least a half-step Celestial Realm powerhouse. Of course, it was not that simple. The remaining one of the glittering Jewel 3 demons was the strongest of the 3 demons, glittering Jewel Jia. His strength was stronger than an ordinary half-step Heaven Realm Master. Moreover, glittering Jewel Jia was now holed up in the glittering Jewel dynasty. To complete this task, one must attack the glittering Jewel dynasty alone. Although the other 2 demons of the glittering Jewel dynasty were dead, there were still many demons in the Emperor realm and even Emperor Gu's realm. There were many demons at the peak of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. If these demons joined forces, it would be troublesome. Moreover, to attack the glittering Jewel dynasty, one would have to face countless barriers and spirit arrays. It could be said that this suicide mission was difficult for even a half-step Heaven Realm Master to accept. The glittering Jewel 3 demons have been running the glittering Jewel dynasty for hundreds of years. It was heavily guarded. If one rashly broke in, they would not be able to protect themselves. What do you think? This task is not something you can accept. I have a few more tasks here. You can take a look. The task hall elder smiled and said after seeing Chu Fumian finish reading the task. He also saw Chu Fumian's arrogance just now and wanted to take him down a notch. After all, this was a suicide mission. As an elder of the Sea Sword sect and a half-step Heaven Realm Master, he was not sure if he could accept it. This task is good. I'll accept it. After reading the Jade Token, Chu Fumian did not hand it back. Instead, he put it away, which meant that Chu Fumian had accepted the task. The task of the Sea Sword sect could only be accepted by one person at a time. Only if the task failed or voluntarily gave up could the next person take it. What? You want to accept this task? The task hall elder was shocked when he heard Chu Fumian. His exclamation attracted the gazes of quite a few Sea Sword sect disciples in the mission hall. They all looked over and just happened to see the Jade Talisman in Chu Fumian's hand. The Sea Sword sect disciples, sect masters. Suicide mission. And does this High Sure See not want to live anymore? Is he going to accept a suicide mission? Isn't this life-ending mission something that even the elders can't accept? Many of the core disciples' faces drastically changed. Suicide missions were something that they did not dare to touch. They did not even dare to try to accept them. Sect was sect. Sect disciples. This was to let the disciples who accepted the task know their limits. Now, Chu Fumian wanted to accept the task. You really want to accept it? The task hall elder looked at Chu Fumian and asked in disbelief. Although Linlang Dynasty has lost 2 half-step Celestial Realm experts, the other experts are still here. 9 Tribulations Emperor Gu's 14 demon venerables are still here. Don't worry. It's just a few demons. Chu Fumian waved his hand, took the Jade Token, and left. His figure turned into a ray of light and left the task hall in a flash. High Sure See really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Does he think he can kill half-step Celestial Realm experts now that he's strong? Linlang Jia is not an ordinary half-step Celestial Realm expert. He's too arrogant. High Sure See will definitely suffer this time. He may even die in Linlang Jia's hands. Ridiculous. Even the 3rd young master could not kill Linlang Jia. How dare High Sure See accept this task? Forget it. We wanted to recruit High Sure See. Now that High Sure See has accepted the task and left, let's go back and tell the 3rd young master. The few core disciples chatted for a while and left one after another. Linlang Dynasty is in the chaotic ocean. Chu Fumian flew all the way and left the Sea Sword sect, flying in the direction of the chaotic ocean. The chaotic ocean where Linlang Dynasty was located was not in the Sword Sea. It was not even in the territory of the 3 major forces. It was an extremely unique sea. The chaotic ocean as the name suggested, was extremely chaotic. It was considered a lawless place in the vast sea star region. There were undercurrents surging and demonic aura surging. There were countless hidden dangers. Some of the demonic aura even gathered with the seawater to form the eye of the sea. It was strong enough to suck in and suppress a half-step celestial realm expert. There were also many ancient sea beasts living in it. It was difficult for outsiders to set foot in it. It was said that there were some ancient sea beasts in the chaotic ocean. There were even some old demons that had lived for tens of thousands of years. That was why there was demonic aura everywhere. Some demonic cultivators in the vast sea star region and foreign tribes that were being hunted down by the sea race were hiding in the chaotic ocean. Many experts had established many forces in the chaotic ocean. The Linlang dynasty was considered one of the major forces in the chaotic ocean. Because of the uniqueness of the chaotic ocean, ordinary people could not set foot in the chaotic ocean. Hai Shirsi had only heard of the chaotic ocean, but had never been there. However, the location of the Linlang dynasty was recorded in the Jade Talisman. Chu Fengmian followed the map and rode the immemorial centipede. After 5 days, Chu Fengmian finally arrived at a sea. This was the chaotic ocean. The moment he stepped into the chaotic ocean, Chu Fengmian felt a demonic aura. This demonic aura had already merged with the seawater of the chaotic ocean. It was no wonder that the entire chaotic ocean had changed. This demonic aura. It's possible that there are some old demons hiding in the chaotic ocean. Chu Fengmian felt the demonic aura. He also felt that the rumors were true. Chu Fengmian had to be careful. Fortunately, the Linlang dynasty was at the periphery of the chaotic ocean. Chu Fengmian did not need to go deep into the chaotic ocean. This way, it would be less dangerous. Roar! At this moment, a huge figure that was thousands of feet tall suddenly appeared. It seemed to have seen Chu Fengmian. It suddenly opened its mouth and tried to swallow Chu Fengmian. First, set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, book Guest House. Chapter 1903. It was a humongous sea beast, thousands of feet long. It was an ancient yuan whale. This kind of yuan whale was a colossus among the sea beasts. In ancient times, it was the overlord of the sea. The ancestors of the sea beasts and the sea clan originated from the black whale, one of the innate divine beasts. However, a sea god rose from the sea clan and led the sea clan to prosperity and civilization. The sea beasts, on the other hand, remained the same as in ancient times. They were still beasts without much spiritual intelligence. This kind of ancient sea beast, like a wild beast, had a humongous body. This sea beast was only at the peak of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu's realm, but it was already so humongous. When Chu Fengmian entered the chaotic ocean, he had kept the primordial centipede in case he encountered any trouble. If the primordial centipede was around, the ancient yuan whale would not dare to approach it. However, now that Chu Fengmian was alone, the ancient yuan whale dared to attack him directly. The power of the ancient yuan whale was stronger than that of a demon god of the same realm. Its body, which was thousands of feet long, also gave it great power. However, in Chu Fengmian's eyes, the power of the ancient yuan whale was no different from that of an ant. Sword out. Swoosh! Chu Fengmian pointed his finger and turned it into a sword chi, slashing at the ancient yuan whale. The humongous ancient yuan whale was cut into 2 halves by Chu Fengmian's sword light. Devour. At the same time, Chu Fengmian operated the sky-devouring secret skill and grabbed at the ancient yuan whale. The ancient yuan whale's blood was sucked dry and condensed in Chu Fengmian's palm, turning into a ball of blood essence. This ball of blood essence was the condensation of the ancient yuan whale's blood. It contained extremely pure spiritual power. Many 9 tribulations Emperor Gu would fight for it outside. The ancient yuan whale is indeed a branch of the black whale's descendants. However, the black whale's bloodline in this one's blood is too little. Chu Fengmian opened his palm and carefully felt the power in this ball of blood essence as he muttered to himself. The ancient yuan whale clan was said to be the sea beast closest to the black whale bloodline, which was equivalent to the ancient war dragon clan of the Dragon Clan. However, the bloodline of the one before them was already extremely thin. After all, the ancient Yuan whale race had reproduced for thousands of generations, so the bloodline of the mysterious whale was getting thinner and thinner. If Chu Fengmian hadn't fused with the primeval qi and was extremely sensitive to the power of the innate divine beast bloodline, he wouldn't even have been able to detect the power of the profound whale's bloodline in the primordial whale's bloodline. Chu Fengmian would probably have to kill hundreds of such ancient origin whales in order to gather a little bit of the profound whale bloodline power from their bloodlines. Of course, even if it was just a little bit, it would not be of much use. It was far from enough to control the power of the mysterious whale. Innate divine beast bloodline. If I have a chance, I can master a few more. However, even if I kill all the ancient Yuan whales in the chaotic ocean, I won't be able to gather enough bloodlines. Chu Fengmian's current strength was inseparable from the innate divine beast bloodline in his body. Chu Fengmian had already mastered the dragon origin and the heaven-devouring origin. However, he had to rely on the claws of progenitor Tianlong and the heart of the heaven-devouring beast to merge their primeval qi with Chu Fengmian's. Although Chu Fengmian had also obtained a part of the tongue serpent bloodline, it was too little. Therefore, Chu Fengmian couldn't control the power of the tongue serpent bloodline at all. If Chu Fengmian wanted to control more innate divine beast bloodline power, he would need a large amount of bloodline power. The amount of bloodline in the primordial whale was too little. This little bit of bloodline was useless to Chu Fengmian. I have to kill at least 10,000 of these primordial whales and extract their bloodline to have a small chance of comprehending the power of the mysterious whale. Chu Fengmian sighed. 10,000 primordial whales might not even be in the entire chaotic ocean or even the entire Shanghai Star region. Moreover, Chu Fengmian couldn't go on a killing spree in the Shanghai Star region to hunt the primordial whales. Let's deal with the glittering jewel dynasty first. Chu Fengmian's mind flickered and a wave of spiritual power suppressed the primordial whale's essence blood in his palm. In addition to the bloodline power, the essence blood of the primordial whale also contained a demonic intent. The chaotic ocean had been eroded by the demonic intent, and the living creatures in it were no exception. The primordial whales weren't ferocious sea beasts. However, the primordial whales in the chaotic ocean had been eroded by the demonic intent, so each and every one of them had become extremely violent. Chu Fengmian shuttled under the sea towards the glittering jewel dynasty, encountering many attacks from sea beasts along the way. The glittering jewel dynasty is in this area. Chu Fengmian followed the map and came to an oceanic trench in the chaotic ocean. The glittering jewel dynasty was built in this oceanic trench. From the outside, there seemed to be nothing inside, but Chu Fengmian felt that this oceanic trench had been concealed by some means. Break! Chu Fengmian took a glance and condensed a sword light in the palm of his hand. He slashed down fiercely on the oceanic trench. Boom! As Chu Fengmian's sword light fell, the entire oceanic trench trembled. There seemed to be signs of something shattering. The great array that enveloped the Linlang Empire shattered with a loud bang as cracks appeared on it. Chu Fengmian had a panoramic view of the glittering jewel dynasty that was hidden in the oceanic trench through these cracks. The glittering jewel dynasty was a force established by the glittering jewel three demons. It looked like a city built on the seabed, like Jinan City and Solitary Sea City. However, it was a demonic city. Chu Fengmian smelled the stench of blood as soon as he broke the great array of the glittering jewel dynasty. Blood and human bones were everywhere in the glittering jewel dynasty. The glittering jewel dynasty was an out-and-out demonic force. It hid in the chaotic ocean and was lawless. Usually, the demons of the glittering jewel dynasty would plunder other sea cities. Regardless of whether it was the sea clan or the human clan, they would be captured and brought to the glittering jewel dynasty. Their blood essence would be extracted and turned into food. Although there were 9 demon city and 6 demon sects in the 9 domains, they would not go too far due to the other sections. However, The glittering jewel dynasty was unscrupulous. Countless martial artists and demon immortals had died in the glittering jewel dynasty. End of chapter. Chapter 1904. The cities that had been plundered by the glittering jewel dynasty were barren and devoid of life. All life would be plundered in the glittering jewel dynasty and devoured by the disciples of the demonic sect. A bunch of beasts. Chu Fengmian glanced at the glittering jewel dynasty with murderous intent in his eyes. Chu Fengmian had only seen such a lawless demonic sect in ancient books. Now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he could see that the scene was much more tragic than what was recorded in the ancient books. Who is it? How dare you come to the glittering jewel dynasty? Whoosh! As the formation shattered, a figure suddenly flew out from the inside of the glittering jewel dynasty. It was a middle-aged man. There were still traces of blood at the corner of his mouth. Just a moment ago, he had devoured a member of the Sea Clan. This middle-aged man was at the pinnacle of the 9 tribulations Emperor Gu. Chu Fengmian recognized him at a glance. He was one of the 14 demon sovereigns of the glittering jewel dynasty, the earthly exterminating demon sovereign. The 14 demon sovereigns of the glittering jewel dynasty were all at the pinnacle of the level 9 Emperor Gu. They were all old demons who had lived for thousands of years and had devoured countless lives to cultivate their demonic techniques. An ordinary 9 tribulations Emperor Gu would not be a match for them in a one-on-one fight. Hi, Shirsi. I didn't expect it to be you. How dare a piece of trash like you come to the glittering jewel dynasty? The earthly exterminating demon sovereign looked at Chu Fengmian and recognized him at a glance. Hai Shirsi was one of the core disciples of the Sea Sword sect. He was quite famous in the entire Songhai Star Zone. The earthly exterminating demon sovereign looked at Chu Fengmian with greed in his eyes. Great. I haven't eaten such a powerful member of the Sea Tribe for a long time. Hai Shirsi, since you've delivered yourself to me, I won't hold back. The earthly exterminating demon sovereign roared and suddenly attacked Chu Fengmian with his palm. This palm contained endless demonic blood. No one knew how many living beings the earth exterminating demon venerate had killed in his life. He had turned the essence blood of these living beings into demonic blood and formed this demonic blood giant hand that contained the power of millions of living beings that had died in his hands. The blood-red demonic blood tree swept towards Chu Fengmian. In an instant, the entire Linlang dynasty was shaken. The Linlang dynasty was built in an oceanic trench that was filled with dense demonic intent. The strength of the earth exterminating demon venerate was much more terrifying here than it was outside. The power of a single palm was enough to exterminate all life in the world. However, in the face of this palm, Chu Fengmian only revealed a hint of disdain at the corner of his mouth. He pointed his finger, and it turned into thousands of sword auras that instantly blasted out. Boom! The demonic blood palm shattered under the onslaught of the 1,000 rays of sword chi and exploded. At the same time, the body of the earth exterminating demon reverend exploded. The earth exterminating demon reverend did not even have the strength to resist as his body was pierced by thousands of sword chi. It was a loud bang. The earthly destruction demon venerable's body immediately exploded, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and collected it into his palm, turning it into a drop of demon blood. What's going on? The Earth's annihilation's aura has disappeared. Earth annihilation is dead? Who is it? Suddenly, a few more figures flew out from the Linlang dynasty. There were a total of 13 of them, and they were the remaining 13 demon reverends. They were usually in seclusion. When they sensed that someone had destroyed the great array of the Linlang dynasty, they came out from their seclusion. However, before they could arrive, they sensed that the earth-exterminating demon venerable had been killed. Their expressions changed drastically. Hi, Shirsi. How is this possible? The earth-exterminating demon venerable was killed by Hai Shirsi? Since when did Hai Shirsi become so powerful? Forget it. Let's kill him first. The 13 demon reverends came out from their seclusion and looked towards Chu Fengmian. Their eyes were filled with killing intent, and they did not waste any time and attacked together. In an instant, the demons danced wildly, and demonic intent filled the sky. These demon sovereigns of the glittering jewel dynasty were all old devils who had lived for thousands of years. Their hands were stained with the blood of countless people. The moment they attacked, they gathered their demonic will and transformed into ancient demon gods that attacked Chu Fengyan. Demon slaying. Chu Fengyan took out his spiritual sword and instantly displayed a kind of demon-slaying sword technique. This kind of demon-slaying sword technique was recorded in the Sword Dao Totem. It was a sword technique that could be used to slay the demon clan. It had a restraining effect on the demon clan. Chu Fengyan held the spiritual sword and took a step forward, rushing forward. In front of his sword, all the demonic intent could not enter Chu Fengyan's body. The demons that rushed forward were all killed by Chu Fengyan's sword. Die. Chu Fengyan took a step forward, and his sword flashed. 3 of the demon reverends were mercilessly killed. Their blood essence was also collected by Chu Fengyan, turning into demonic blood and falling into Chu Fengyan's palm. After collecting the blood essence, he also cut off the hope of these demons being reborn. What's going on? Since when did Hai Shirsi become so powerful? In an instant, another 3 demon reverends died in Chu Fengyan's hands. The remaining 10 demon reverends were extremely shocked. They retreated and looked at each other. Wake up the Lord. Waves of demonic intent burst out, as if to wake up someone. Chu Fengyan did not bother to stop them. Holding the spiritual sword, he rushed toward the 10 demon reverends again. A few sword lights. Each sword light was enough to kill a demon reverend. In a few breaths, only 5 of the 14 demon reverends were left. The other 9 were all killed by Chu Fengyan, and their blood essence was taken by Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan looked at the remaining 5 demon reverends. Just as he was about to kill them all, the demonic intent of the entire glittering jewel dynasty suddenly surged. The horde of devils howled as an ancient fiend descended. It was an old man with a ferocious face. The other 5 demon reverends looked at the old man, as if they were looking at their savior. The last one of the glittering jewel 3 demons was Linlang Jie. Linlang Jie's aura was much stronger than an ordinary half-step celestial being. Although he had not reached the peak of the half-step celestial being realm, he could fight against 2 or 3 ordinary half-step celestial beings. Linlang Jie descended and looked at the scene of heavy casualties. His eyes were filled with boundless murderous intent. It was as if a real demon god was enraged. If it were a slightly weaker martial artist, they would have been scared to death by such killing intent. Hai Shirsi, how dare you provoke our glittering jewel dynasty? Even Hai Changa did not dare to come to my glittering jewel dynasty to find trouble with me. How dare you? You are courting death. End of chapter. Chapter 1905. Linlang Jie's gaze fell on Chu Fengyan, and his lips curled into a sinister smile. Hai Shirsi, aren't you going to give me an explanation for killing so many of my men? Is that so? Why wouldn't I, Hai Shirsi, dare to do what Hai Changa didn't dare to do? Chu Fengyan sneered. What explanation? Today is the day of the Linlang dynasty's demise. Linlang Jie, if you know what's good for you, kill yourself, and I'll leave your corpse intact. You're courting death. Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, Linlang Jie couldn't hold back his anger and suddenly attacked. Hai Shirsi, you've killed so many of my men. Today, I'll capture you and pour my demonic blood into you, turning you into a demonic corpse. I'll make up for the loss of my Linlang dynasty. Linlang Jie's eyes flashed fiercely as he shouted coldly. 1,000 demonic suppression. Rumble. Suddenly, Linlang Jie made a grabbing motion with his hand. Balls of devil will turn into thousands of devil clan members. These devil clan members looked at Chu Fengyan with a ferocious expression. They roared and charged towards Chu Fengyan from all directions. Linlang Jie didn't intend to kill Chu Fengyan, but to refine Chu Fengyan into a demonic corpse to serve him. Among these tens of thousands of devils, many of them had turned into devil wills, trying to enter Chu Fengyan's body and corrode it with their devil wills. You want to corrode me with mere demonic will? Chu Fengmian sneered when he saw the demonic will corrode his body. A sword essence erupted from his back. This sword essence completely enveloped Chu Fengmian's body. Any demonic will that got close to Chu Fengmian would be destroyed by the sword essence. No demonic will could get close to Chu Fengmian's body. What a strong sword essence. Hi, Shirsi. It seems like you've obtained a great opportunity. Looking at the sword essence on Chu Fengmian's body, Linlang Jie's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. But soon after, a greedy look appeared in his eyes. Great. The more opportunities you've obtained, the more useful you'll be when I refine you into a demonic corpse. Linlang sneered and attacked again. This time, it was not Mo but Linlang himself. Linlang Jie's body was devouring the surrounding demonic will in a frenzy. No one knew how much demonic will he had devoured. His entire body had turned into a 100-feet-tall giant. The demonic will on his body had turned into demonic scales. At a glance, he had already become a half-human, half-demon existence. Countless cracks appeared on the ground of the Linlang dynasty. Countless Devil Clan members flew out from these cracks. These Devil Clan members were raised by the Linlang dynasty and were hidden under the ground of the Linlang dynasty. Linlang Jie ruled over the demons like an ancient demon emperor. As long as he gave the order, all the demons would obey his command and kill everything in sight. I won't waste any more time with you. Anyway, the entire Linlang dynasty will be destroyed. Chu Fengmian looked at Linlang Jie and took a step forward. The shocking sword will that enveloped Chu Fengmian poured into Chu Fengmian's sword. At the same time, the ancient phantom of the Sea Sword Emperor also condensed behind Chu Fengmian and was integrated into the sword edge. This sword was the great accomplishment of the Sea Sword Sex sword technique. Destroy. Chu Fengmian's sword edge fell. In an instant, the thousands of Devil Clan members were annihilated. The sword edge slashed Linlang Jie's body. In an instant, the scales and demonic will on Linlang Jie's body were shattered. His 100-feet-tall body was mercilessly destroyed by the sword edge. The profundity of Chu Fengmian's sword was not inferior to that of the ancestor who founded the Sea Sword sect, the Sea Sword Emperor. Linlang Jie's expression changed drastically. He had never expected that Chu Fengmian's sword edge would be so terrifying. No. He wanted to escape, but there was nowhere for him to run. This sword edge had expanded by 1,000,000 times, and the entire Linlang dynasty was shrouded by this sword edge. It was unknown how many disciples of the Linlang dynasty had died under this sword edge. The disciples of the Linlang dynasty were all devils. Since Chu Fengmian wanted to destroy the Linlang dynasty, he naturally did not intend to let any of them escape. Linlang Jie wanted to give up and escape by himself. However, Chu Fengmian's eyes were fixed on him. The moment Linlang Jie appeared, a sword light slashed down mercilessly. Even Linlang Jie was unable to retaliate before he was killed by the sword. Devour. Chu Fengmian activated the sky, devouring secret technique. The essence blood of countless disciples of the Linlang dynasty was devoured by Chu Fengmian and turned into drops of demonic blood. Among the demonic blood, a drop of demonic blood contained the most terrifying demonic will. This drop of demonic blood had tried to escape countless times after falling into the sky, devouring secret technique. It was the demonic blood that was transformed from Linlang Jie's essence blood. However, with a single thought from Chu Fengmian, restrictions began to press down on Linlang Jie. Linlang Jie's demonic blood no longer had the ability to resist. The demonic blood was thrown into an empty ring by Chu Fengmian. Below, the Linlang dynasty had become a pile of trash. There were no disciples of the Linlang dynasty who were still alive. The Linlang dynasty, which had committed all kinds of evil, had been wiped out by Chu Fengmian alone. From now on, there would be no Linlang dynasty in the world. Chu Fengmian swept his gaze around and saw a palace amidst the ruins in the depths of the Linlang dynasty. This palace was not destroyed by Chu Fengmian's sword. However, the restriction array that originally enveloped the palace had been completely shattered. The palace could be said to be on the verge of collapse. Chu Fengmian walked over and pushed open the door of the palace. At a glance, he saw countless spiritual stones piled up. This is the treasury of the Linlang dynasty. Chu Fengyan pushed open the door of the palace. The moment he saw the spiritual stones, he knew that this was the treasury of the Linlang dynasty. The Linlang dynasty was a force that had been established in the Songhai Star Zone for thousands of years. Usually, when a Linlang dynasty ransacked the cities, not only did they capture living creatures, but they also looted the wealth of the cities and brought it back to their lair. After thousands of years of accumulation, the wealth in the treasury of the Linlang dynasty was not inferior to the treasury of the four major forces of the Daluo Star Zone. There were even more treasures in it. After all, the prosperity of the Songhai Star Zone was far from what the Daluo Star Zone could compare with. Chu Fengyan waved his hand and collected everything in the treasury into his empty ring. The Linlang dynasty had been extinguished, and all the wealth belonged to Chu Fengyan. Set a small goal first, such as 1 second to remember. Book Guest House Mobile Edition. Chapter 1906. The wealth accumulated by the glittering jewel dynasty was much more than Chu Fengyan had imagined. There was another world within this palace. There were a total of 9 floors. Although there were fewer treasures on each floor compared to the previous one, the value of each floor was much higher. However, most of the treasures in the treasury were not of much use to Chu Fengyan now. Only immortal stones, immortal items, or even some unique heavenly wonder items and sacred medicines would be useful to Chu Fengyan now. Chu Fengyan stepped into the 9th floor of the palace. This should be the core of the glittering jewel dynasty's treasury. There should be more treasures here. The glittering jewel 3 demons were often ambushed when they moved around the Songhai Star Zone. Therefore, their treasures were all hidden in the treasury. After all, the glittering jewel dynasty was their nest and the safest place. Therefore, there were not many treasures in glittering jewel's empty ring. The treasures were all in the treasury. Chu Fengyan stepped into the 9th floor of the palace. There were not many treasures on the 9th floor. There was only a wooden shelf with a few items on it. Oh, this is... Chu Fengyan suddenly smelled a medicinal fragrance. He looked over and saw a jade bottle on the wooden shelf. There were more than a dozen elixirs in the jade bottle. The jade bottle was sealed, but it still emitted a medicinal fragrance. The elixirs in the jade bottle were definitely not ordinary items. Chu Fengyan walked over and picked up the jade bottle. As soon as he opened it, a pure medicinal fragrance gushed out. It also contained an ancient medicinal power. The elixirs in the jade bottle were definitely primeval-grade sacred elixirs. Sacred elixirs of this grade were almost extinct in this era. To refine primeval-grade sacred elixirs, one would need at least several types of primeval-grade sacred elixirs. In this era, it was not easy to find primeval and medieval-grade sacred elixirs, let alone primeval-grade sacred elixirs. Some of the old antiques still had some primeval-grade sacred elixirs. However, most of them were obtained from ancient ruins. After tens of thousands of years, the medicinal power contained in the elixirs had gradually dissipated. Even though the medicinal effects of the ancient sage elixir dissipated very slowly over the years, any ancient sage elixir that was found in the ancient sage elixir that had 70% of its medicinal effects would be considered to be of the highest quality. For most of the primordial sacred pills, it was already considered good if they had 50% of their medicinal power left. However, judging from the pure medicinal power contained in the bottle of ancient sacred pills in Chu Fengyan's hand, it was definitely not the kind of ancient sacred pills unearthed from ruins. Instead, it was an ancient sacred pill that had just been concocted not long ago. It had been concocted in the past 10 years. In this bottle of ancient sage pills, every single pill contained 100% of the medicinal power. Not a single drop was lost. If an ancient sacred elixir with 100% medicinal strength was put up for auction, it would be enough to make countless experts of the half-step celestial realm go crazy for it. Chu Fengyan didn't expect that the treasury of the glittering jewel dynasty would contain such a treasure. The treasury of the glittering jewel dynasty was a pleasant surprise for Chu Fengyan. After all, Chu Fengyan had only destroyed the glittering jewel dynasty to complete the mission of the Sea Sword sect. Who would have thought that there would be such a harvest this time? Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. He poured out an ancient sacred elixir from the jade bottle. This ancient sacred elixir had a golden luster. The power contained in it was actually the power of a strange beast. This primordial sacred elixir was like a huge beast that contained endless power. Divine Elephant Dark Strength Elixir? This is the Divine Elephant Dark Strength Elixir? Chu Fengmian exclaimed when he felt the power of this ancient sacred elixir. He recognized the identity of this ancient sacred elixir at a glance. The Divine Elephant Dark Strength Elixir. For all the martial artists and demon immortals of the body refining path, this was the elixir that they yearned for the most. In terms of value, it was no less than the hidden gold essence and the six-winged centipede. The divine elephant was one of the innate divine beasts. It represented the pinnacle of physical strength in the world. Even other innate divine beasts couldn't compete with the divine elephant in terms of strength. The descendants of the divine elephant, heavenly elephant, mysterious elephant, and ancient elephant were also the representatives of the power of the demon beast clan. This divine elephant dark strength elixir was a type of sacred elixir that was refined from several sacred elixirs of the body refining path and a little bit of the divine elephant's bloodline. This divine elephant dark strength elixir was one of the best elixirs for martial artists and demon immortals to condense an immortal real body. Many experts in the ancient era relied on this divine elephant dark strength elixir to condense an immortal real body. But now, the ancient sacred elixir used to refine the divine elephant dark strength elixir was extremely rare. Chu Fengmian had only seen this type of elixir in ancient books. In the 9 regions, this divine elephant dark strength elixir hadn't been successfully refined for tens of thousands of years. He didn't expect the glittering jewel 3 demons to have gathered all the materials needed to refine the divine elephant dark strength elixir. They even managed to refine it. There were a total of 13 divine elephant dark strength elixirs in this jade bottle. They were all refined from the same furnace. It seems that the glittering jewel 3 demons are quite ambitious. Chu Fengmian looked at the divine elephant dark strength elixir in the jade bottle and smiled. Chu Fengmian had already guessed the purpose of the glittering jewel 3 demons to refine the divine elephant dark strength elixir. They wanted to condense an immortal real body. As long as they condensed an immortal real body in the half-step celestial realm, they would gain a lot of benefits after passing the celestial tribulation and ascending to immortality. Chu Fengmian knew that both young Emperor and Heavenly King Desolation had been suppressing their cultivation for the same reason. Instead of trying to break through, they wanted to form their deathless true bodies. It seemed that the glittering jewel 3 demons had the same plan. Speaking of which, the glittering jewel 3 demons' chances of success were higher than young Emperor and Heavenly King Huang's. They had been accumulating strength and cultivating their physique. With these divine elephant dark strength elixirs, they really had a chance of condensing an immortal real body. Unfortunately, 2 of the glittering jewel 3 demons had died at the hands of Hai Chang'e. The last one, glittering jewel Jie, had also died at the hands of Chu Fengmian. The entire glittering jewel dynasty had been wiped out by Chu Fengmian. This bottle of divine elephant dark strength elixir now belonged to Chu Fengmian. These divine elephant profound strength pills can add a bit more strength to my physical body. Although Chu Fengmian had already condensed an immortal real body, the divine elephant dark strength elixir contained a little bit of divine elephant power. It could strengthen Chu Fengmian's immortal real body. It could make Chu Fengmian's body more tenacious and stronger. With the divine elephant dark strength elixir in his hands, Chu Fengmian did not hold back. He took out a divine elephant dark strength elixir and swallowed it. In a chapter that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.